What's going on, fellow A-Plusers? It is I, your host, Adam Perez, back once again with a brand new episode of A-Plus Hero Report, your weekly stop for your Marvel, DC television, and movie news as we wrap up your week with some of the hottest news from your favorite fandoms and franchises. We got 6 incredible topics we're going to be diving into today. We're going to be finally wrapping up the series finale for Superman and Lois as Stewart's got his final review for you guys. We're going to get into a ton of Harry Potter television updates as we got rumors and brand new ideas as to what this series is certainly going to turn out to be. We got a little bit of a Kraven the Hunter preview as Kraven the Hunter drops this week for you guys, and some Marvel Studios MCU film discussion. So sit back, relax, grab your coffee, and enjoy your Sunday afternoon with us, and we'll see you on the other side. Heyo! Welcome back to another episode of A-Plus Hero Report. It is I, your host, Adam Perez, back once again with good old Stuart Branscombe. What's going on, buddy? How you doing, man?
Hey, I am doing pretty good, especially for someone who thought he was going to be homeless like just about 4 days ago. So full context here. I got a tsunami warning in my area, which scared the crap out of me because I'm in San Francisco and right by the ocean. But then it ended up being kind of a false alarm in the end. So everything was fine. But there was like a good hour where I'm like, oh, crap, am I gonna lose my apartment?
Yeah, I heard you guys had a earthquake over there.
Yeah, but it was more in the ocean, so I didn't feel it myself because I think it happened way out in the ocean.
Oh,
I think that's why they expected a tsunami.
Yeah, I even got it on my notification tsunami warning. Even though I'm in Texas, they notified me on the California coast, and so I didn't realize I didn't realize how close to the ocean you were, man.
Yeah. But everything, like I said, everything is fine in the end. So yeah.
How are you feeling, man? I know you weren't feeling too well last weekend.
So there was a restaurant that opened up near my apartment, and it's where so basically it's in the exact same area where this ramen place I used to go to was at. So when I saw like a new restaurant moved in there, I'm like, oh cool, I'll check it out. I knew I probably shouldn't have eaten it because like when I got like my bowl, I could tell because it was basically kind of like one of those places where you basically choose from assorted different like meats and seafoods and noodles.
Okay.
And it basically they build your own like kind of noodle soup out of that, and I could kind of tell some of the food or some of the meat seemed undercooked, but I'm just kind of like I'm really hungry, so I don't care, and that was probably a bad idea.
Yeah, probably, man.
I think that's why I ended up getting sick. Yeah, but
can't trust those news restaurants, man. You know what I'm saying? Gotta be really wary.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm probably not going to be eating there again anytime soon.
Well, I'm glad you're doing better, man. I'm glad you're doing better. That if for some reason for you guys, just so you know, I do have my Ethernet connection plugged in, but if I do look a little bit janky, if the internet's a little bit slow, if I drop out, I definitely excuse me. Stuart, if anything, will man the ship for us. If anything, just have the backup storylines ready for us, Stuart, just in case.
Of course.
But we should be more than fine for the most part. But yeah, if I look a little janky, I do apologize. Things around the household getting better. My little boy is feeling a little bit better. He's still taking his medication, his amoxicillin, and some of his allergy medicine. But other than that, no more fevers. He still has like this cough though, and I can kind of hear some of the congestion that he's trying to get out. But I don't know how long something like that certainly lasts. But kiddo is in much better position than when he was last week, man. So I'm really glad that he's recovering well. But yeah, everybody else is around here is just getting ready for the holidays, man. We haven't put up our Christmas tree yet. That might be something that we do later on tonight. We did watch Elf last night to go ahead and kick off our Christmas movie showing. So maybe we'll do like Home Alone tonight while we put up the Christmas tree. Have you watched any Christmas movies this year?
Actually not as many as I usually do around this time. I love Elf, but I think my job has ruined it for me because we always do like what we call the Elf party at the draft house.
Oh.
And that's just when we get like just some of the worst customers, honestly. You know, and the worst part is that it's a short movie, so we have very limited time to get the food to the theater, and oftentimes they keep ordering after we've already dropped the checks, and so some of the times, like by the time the movie ends, they'll still have food that's like there that hasn't even been dropped off yet, and it's just it's the most chaotic thing to work ever. So it's like my job kind of ruined that movie for me, but yeah, the main movies that I always watch though every year, apart from Elf, you know, is Muppets Christmas Carol. Absolutely love that movie. Christmas Vacation. That movie just makes me laugh so hard every single time. And the older I get, the less crazy Griswold seems. And then yeah, Home Alone, of course. And now my new favorite Christmas movie. It's a bit of a Christmas horror film for anyone out there interested, but it's called Deadly Games. And just imagine Home Alone, but French. And with instead of like two goofball bandits, it's like an actual like scary like kind of guy that's like trying to break in. And so you have just this kid in this like giant rich mansion trying to protect his grandfather while this one guy is like going after both of them. So it's a pretty awesome movie. It's a horror movie, but it's also kind of like it's like a kid pretending to be like John Rambo, or I guess would be more accurate, because you know he's like kind of going through the vents of his house like trying to fight this guy. It's incredible. Highly recommend Deadly Games if anyone here hasn't seen it.
Okay, maybe I'll check that one out. You know, I haven't watched the Muppets Christmas in like forever, man. Maybe that's one I'll add to my list this year. Another one I want to add to my list this year is Krampus. I saw Krampus. I saw it in theaters, and then I just saw it pop up on my streaming network the other day, and it made me think like, oh, I want to revisit that. This is the perfect time of the year to revisit that. So I'll probably do that. I'll probably definitely want something that I've added to my list over the past 2 years has been and I've talked about this before, the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. That's almost a must watch around my household now. And yeah, and then your traditional Christmas stuff. I am contemplating once again, because I just finished watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier to get ready for Captain America 4 this February. There's a part of me that's contemplating going back and revisiting Hawkeye again. I watched it last year for Christmas, and it was actually really perfect for the Christmas holiday, and it kind of makes me want to go back once again just to kind of get caught up with Yelena's storyline also going into Thunderbolts. So I might we definitely have a lot of Christmas watching to certainly do around here.
Yeah, I honestly forgot that Hawkeye took place during Christmas.
Yeah, it really worked out for me as a Christmas little mini series to certainly watch. But guys, look, if you're watching us in the chat right now, if you're watching us in the live chat, what are some of your go-to for Christmas films? Have you guys started watching your Christmas movies yet? Do you have a list, top 3, top 5 that you always got to watch every year? I definitely would love to know your guys' Christmas holiday films that you guys check out during the holidays.
Oh man, that's another one I hadn't thought of in a while. The Tim Allen Santa Claus movies.
Yeah, I think we watched the first and second one last year. But yeah, I probably will watch. I'll probably watch the first one at least again this year.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw 3. I saw 2 once, but the first one I've rewatched so many times.
yeah, it's definitely a staple here too. Let's see who's in our live chat. Look, if you as we go through our honorable mentions, as we go through our main topics and our live viewer questions, feel free to chime in at the live chat at any particular point in time. We definitely want to go ahead and know some of your thoughts. These are simply our A+ opinions when we talk about it, but we always want to know yours, bounce some conversation and discussion pieces off of you guys. So definitely feel free to chat it up with us in the live chat while you're watching along with us, or in the comment section box below after this particular video wraps. But I do want to give some shout outs and love to people that are joining us so far in the live chat. We got Enrique Perez in here, says just saw the official music video for Run It, performed by singer Jelly Roll from the upcoming Sonic the Hedgehog 3 film, featuring new animation for the end credits. Very cool. I am a fan of Jelly Roll. I don't know if I've actually heard a lot of his own individual music, but I feel like when I do listen to Jelly Roll, he's usually like a feature on somebody's song. But I love his voice, though. Enrique Perez also saw the official trailer for upcoming live-action Snow White. Yeah, we might talk about that here in a little bit. Arriving March 2025. Also, the ABC channel to air the live-action Lion King film. During the movie, they will show a sneak peek of Mufasa, the Lion King, will be broadcasting tonight at 8 p.m. And for those of you who don't know, I think it's Aaron Pierre who's going to be playing Jon Stewart, who's actually voicing. I think he's voicing Mufasa in this movie, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong.
I didn't know that.
He's voicing somebody in this movie. Also Saturday, Nickelodeon just aired Netflix series Sonic Prime plus the Knuckles series and the Sonic movies. Okay, very cool. You know, I still got to catch up on. I still have not seen Sonic 2. I still have not watched Knuckles. I got to catch up, man. I really do.
I highly recommend Sonic 2. That movie was so much fun. And then Knuckles, I enjoyed it. I know a lot of Sonic fans were kind of disappointed with it because there wasn't a lot of like actual Sonic stuff in it. It was just kind of a bowling movie that just happened to have Knuckles in it as a character. Wow. I didn't mind that because I was laughing the whole time. And I thought it was hilarious, the implication that this takes place in the same universe as Dodgeball, because they actually use the same like fictional ESPN the Osho, yeah, exactly. From Dodgeball. Awesome. It's just like, oh my gosh, I never would have expected Dodgeball to be in the same universe as Sonic.
That's pretty fantastic, man. We got Blossom in the house. What's up, Blossom? Always appreciate certainly seeing you around here. We got Ram Jam in the house also. He said, I read an article that the servers for Friday the 13th game will be shutting down on December 31st. Have you heard about that, Stuart?
I have not.
Let's see here. He's also heard that about Harry Potter TV series. It will be similar to Percy Jackson's TV series. Yeah, we're gonna definitely talk highly about Harry Potter, as that's one of our main topics here today for sure. And guys, just so you guys know, also we don't have any sponsors here for the channel. So if you do want to support us, if you want to continue to help us grow, certainly feel free to go ahead and submit a super chat over. It definitely goes to helping up our production value here for the channel for sure. And then if you can't help us out monetarily, that's certainly more than fine. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share these videos. It definitely does certainly go a long way, guys. So we definitely appreciate all your support each and every week. And if you haven't submitted your live viewer questions over, certainly go ahead and do so now. There is if you go over to our YouTube channel, click on the community tab, there is a post for your live viewer questions. So you can feel free to submit them over at any time. But Stuart, let's go ahead and kick off this show with our first segment of the day. Welcome to Honorable Mentions. For those of you first-time viewers, Honorable Mentions is pretty much really a portion of our show where didn't quite make our top 6 topics of the day, but definitely felt that you certainly still deserve to know about it. So we'll see what kind of Honorable Mentions we got for you guys here. You got anything, Stuart, by any chance?
Yeah, I gotta talk about. I won't go on long about it, I promise. But I got to give my quick initial thoughts on Creature Commandos. Because guys, the new DC universe is here. And James Gunn has decided to, instead of starting it out with a movie or a live action TV series, he decided to go kind of the simpler route of just like an animated series to really set up this universe. And kind of looking back at it, I think that was a really cool move because it allows him to basically fully establish what exists in this world without having to worry about like budgetary problems or, getting the correct actors or anything like that. You're able to just show it through like quick, bits of animation. And it really kind of shows that like, yeah, this is the type of world we're going to be seeing in Superman. We're going to be seeing Superman in the world where, superheroes have existed for a long time. And I like how that all gets established in Creature Commandos. I also so first 2 episodes that we've seen, I enjoyed both of them. I wouldn't say I was like blown away by either of them. I just had a fun time watching them. I think so far my favorite character is definitely the Bride of Frankenstein. And I love the way they kind of, I don't know how her origins went in the comic books, but they definitely took some influences from the Universal monster movies, not only in designs, but also in like her origin as well, like especially like them kind of like taking that whole thing of her just kind of like existing in an instance and being like terrified when she sees Frankenstein and sees herself in the mirror. Like I absolutely love that. But then they show what happens after that. And, you do kind of start to sympathize with her quite a bit. And I'm sure that's what we're going to get with all the other members. Even so far, Dr.
Phosphorus.
Phosphorus, yeah.
Phosphorus.
He's the one that James Gunn himself said is like just kind of a psychopath with not many redeeming qualities. But I am curious if, like, even with knowing that in mind, when we get his origins, if we'll still have like an empathetic side to him or something like that. Because knowing James Gunn, he knows how to like both write characters who are kind of like assholes on the outside, but like good people on the inside, like with Guardians of the Galaxy. But then he also knows how to write like, certain characters in Suicide Squad, and it seems like in Creature Commandos. He also knows how to just write people that are just downright terrible to the core, both on the inside and and outside. So I'm really excited to see how that all plays out. But I also last thing I'll say is that I love with the main villain we have, Cersei. I love the kind of change in origin that they give to the Sons of Amazon, because in the comic books, I always thought it was like kind of a little bit too brutal, like for Amazons to just like yeah, I won't even say it because I know that if I like say the full thing, we'll probably get demonetized. But I'll just kind of like say they would jump onto a ship basically, and let's just say they would leave the ship with dead bodies and pregnant bellies, and then any kids that they gave birth to that were men, they would just like or that were boys, they would just give them to the forger and basically just give them free slaves pretty much. So I like how they changed that backstory because I was never really a big fan of that. So they changed that backstory to it just being a bunch of neckbeards that want to take over Themyscira because they hate the fact that it's run by women. They think it's sexist and they think it's the woke, virus that's making us think that this is okay and that kind of thing. I laughed so hard when they like specifically said, "Oh, it's this woke mob that's stopping us from going to Themyscira." That was hilarious. And yeah, the world building's excellent. The characters are really fun. I look forward to seeing Frank Gorello as Rick Flags in live action because so far I love him in the show. And yeah, just overall positive vibes all around.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and get Creature Commandos review up hopefully sometime tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. I've been working overtime at work on Friday, and then they also got me actually working in the office tomorrow too. So I may end up doing double duty after I get off of work and I think Stuart and I are going to try and record another video also for you guys, and then I might try and record the Creature Commandos. So episodes 1 and 2 review will be dropping this week, so certainly look forward to it, at least definitely before episode 3 winds up dropping. But yeah, I would agree. I think The Bride for me right now has become one of my favorites. And I heard James Gunn did take influence not only from the comics but from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein too when crafting the stories for them. So yeah, I'm a big fan of it. But yeah, I'll definitely talk a little bit more about it here in the coming weeks. Let's see here, a couple other honorable mentions for you guys. Ballerina wind up dropping a brand new poster here this week. A little bit of a teaser poster. They didn't give us another trailer or anything like that, but I thought this was pretty incredible to go ahead and showcase the tattoo that she has on her back. Doesn't John Wick have one similar too for being I thought we saw his tattoo in like was it part 2 or something like that? Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right. I can't remember if it looked like that exactly, but I do remember him having a back tattoo.
Right? But yeah, I thought this was pretty badass. But yeah, this is our first teaser poster from Ballerina. We also got ourselves a brand new first look image at Wednesday as to celebrate Wednesday season 2 officially wrapping filming. So filming has wrapped on season 2. I don't know when the release date. If anything, I would probably expect like fall of 2025 or something like that. But yeah, season 2 is on its way into post-production. We got ourselves our very first look here to go ahead and celebrate. Also, we got ourselves another teaser poster, which I was really excited to see, Stuart.
Yes.
28 days later, baby.
28 years.
28 years later, excuse me. 28 years later. Theaters only, coming soon. They don't have a release date yet, but you get the opportunity to see who some of the A-listers up here, or at least the main characters, Jodie Comer and Aaron Taylor Johnson, along with Ralph Fiennes. I would assume, I believe Cillian Murphy's probably in here somewhere. I actually had heard that they had wrapped filming on the second film as well that was being directed by Nia DaCosta. So it feels very much like they might have this is set to be a trilogy, but I do believe they probably from what I had heard, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of weeks or maybe a couple months back, that they had also wrapped filming on the second one also. So things are coming together for 28 years later in regards to this trilogy. But yeah, this is a brand new teaser poster that just dropped. So I'm pumped for it. Are those skulls?
They are indeed.
Man, that's
The
a badass
studio must
poster.
be confident in this movie then if they're
Yeah.
already doing a sequel.
Yeah, I think they're really, really confident. They got Danny Boyle back and Alex Garland, the originals. So yeah, I think they're really fond of what they might have come up with here. What else we got in the news? Yes, the Rings of Power is back in the news because the writers are in fact working on season 3. According to Screen Rant, it says McKay and Payne confirmed that work is underway on season 3, meaning the show has seemingly been renewed. Though the showrunners are careful not to lay any details slip regarding the potential release window or what the audience should expect from the story. Payne reveals that they're prepping now very, very intensely. They said, we're working on it. We're working now. That's all that we can say. We do have some fun stuff, exciting. We do have some exciting stuff coming. It's going to be really good. We're excited. So yeah, season 3 is hard at work currently for you guys. So certainly look forward to that.
Nice. I thought season 2 was such an improvement on season 1, so I hope they kind of continue that momentum.
I agree. And then we got Dawn of the Jedi in the news. James Mangold wound up giving an interview. I guess he's I didn't know this, but I'm assuming he's the director for the upcoming Bob Dylan biopic called A Complete Unknown with Timothy Chalamet. I believe he's the director of it, if I'm not mistaken. But oh yeah, it says writer director, so he did both. So he's he just came out this week while talking about the film. I guess the interviewer had asked him a little bit about Dawn of the Jedi, and this is his quote. He says, "My partner and I have been writing it." His partner that he's talking about is actually one of the co-writers for Andor that wrote the prison escape episode, if I'm not mistaken. But he says, my partner and I have been writing it. I don't know what's next because we haven't gotten to the end of that process. We're trying to finish a draft. So when he says we're trying to finish a draft, it seems like they're still working on just the first draft of the film. Like they haven't necessarily even gotten to the second, the third, or the final draft. Clearly, James Mangold has been busy with putting this a complete unknown film together. So process is coming together, but slower than I think even I expected. Stuart, I didn't know that he was doing a complete unknown, but it kind of makes sense now that progress is a little bit slow, but it's happening.
Mm-hmm. I just hope we don't report about it in the next 2 weeks and then find out, oh, James Mangold has decided to leave the project due to creative differences.
Don't wish that upon us, Stuart.
I'm not wishing it.
Don't put that juju out there, man.
I'm hoping it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't happen either. We also did get ourselves a brand new trailer this week and a poster from Snow White, man. Snow White wind up dropping a brand new one. I don't know when's the release date, March 21st. So this is really going to be kicking off sort of like the pre-summer blockbuster rollout, if you will. But Snow White did drop a brand new teaser poster along with a trailer this week. You know, I got to tell you, Stuart, this movie continues to be very divisive, man. I did see this when I went to go see Wicked. I did see this trailer at the beginning of the in the trailers, and I was actually a really big fan of the trailer. I thought the trailer itself actually looked relatively good. Have you had the opportunity to check it out yourself?
I did. Yeah. And I think honestly, my excitement for this movie might have been higher if I hadn't already been let down by the many other live action Disney sequels that we've gotten over the years. So I think just because of that, and because this trailer doesn't look like it's doing anything particularly new compared to those, my expectations are just so low for this movie. I don't care one way or another. Obviously, I just hope no one confuses me just because I'm not looking forward to this movie. Don't confuse me with the other people online who just think that the movie is too woke and that's why it's going to suck. No, I just don't care because I've been burnt out by really bad live action Disney movies in the past. So I'm just not expecting this to be any different.
I do want to check it out real quick if you're open for it.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
I did see it already, but I do want to watch it again, especially for those that maybe have not had the opportunity to check it out. But yeah, let's go ahead and roll the footage.
This was my father's kingdom, a place of fairness, but the queen changed everything.
Take him away!
Your Majesty,
What did you say?
the people need some kindness.
You know, I really don't remember you being this opinionated. Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all?
Famed is thy beauty, Majesty. But the lovely maiden I now behold.
I look at you, and I just want to be the fairest of them all.
The queen is evil. You must flee into the woods.
You know, I will say though, Stuart, I do like the color scheme of this. I do love. I don't know if they have a filter on it or just I don't know what they're doing with it, but for some reason the colors really kind of pop to me, and I do like the design of Gal Gadot as the evil queen here. I love the costume design that they have for her. We'll see what the performances are like, but those are the first things that really kind of pop out at me.
Yeah, I think she was a great casting for the queen.
Yeah.
And then also going back to what you said with the colors, I do love the contrast between her and Snow White with her wearing completely dark and Snow White being super, obviously like in the name, super bright.
Yeah, for sure.
My parents always said this forest was a magical place. Hello? Is there anybody here?
It's a human.
What did you think I was?
Nothing, ghost.
You'll be safe from the queen here.
The queen stole everything from all of us.
I'm gonna need your help.
It's time to restore our kingdom.
Didn't they have different dwarves originally? Like I thought they were like human dwarves. I think you're muted. But I remember when I saw this trailer, I was thinking to myself, I thought there was like an uproar about the dwarves. Like I remember seeing like set photos and stuff like a long time ago. And so when I can't remember if they changed them in between trailers or if this is the first time that we've seen the dwarves. I can't remember, but I feel like they definitely have changed something since some time. Am I tripping?
No, I remember. I think I know exactly what set photo you're talking about. What I think it is that it was just a set photo that got leaked, and people assumed that that the 7 characters you saw were meant to be the 7 dwarves, but then that wasn't actually the case, I think, but I could be wrong. Or it honestly could have been like what you said earlier. Maybe originally they were going to go with like only because I think I remember only one of them actually being a little person, whereas like the other, weren't. So I think what happened is they just kind of decided to go with CG dwarves. And like, I know, okay, wait, so many people are giving Peter Dinklage way too much credit for this because I don't think him complaining about this in an interview was what made Disney make this decision. But I know that before the movie, anything got released about it, they announced that a live action Disney movie was in development. Peter Dinklage made a comment saying, "Oh, Disney claims to be progressive, but they still have dwarves digging for diamonds and stuff like that." And then that was when it was announced that they weren't going to have little people playing dwarves in this movie, which led to people being like, "Oh, great job, Peter Dinklage! You just cost 7 little people jobs." And again, I think people are giving him too much credit because I don't think this was the reason Disney made that decision. I think that it's just a coincidence. But yeah, anyways, I know exactly what photo you're talking about, where you see like 7 of them, like
coming down the meadow or like coming down a hill or something, walking behind her. So that's why I was just thinking to myself, like, I wasn't sure if Disney got backlash or if they decided like, hey, you know what, this isn't working like film wise when they put it together, and just decided to go ahead and do, put in CGI dwarves. I don't know. I just thought I remember something along those lines. So I would assume that maybe Disney made some sort of change somewhere. But yeah, they just jumped out at me here in the trailer for some reason.
Yeah.
Waiting on a wish, holding out for someday, hoping somehow, some way, there comes a miracle.
Find Snow White.
I close my eyes and see the girl I meant to be. This is our kingdom, and now we're here to take it back.
You were saying.
I'm sorry, my dear. Did I frighten you?
So yeah, March was that 31st, 21st? I think it said. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Now. So yeah, look, I don't have like I grew up on Disney, but I don't think Snow White was one of the VHSs that I was popping in all the time to certainly watch. So like I don't really have a deep connection to the story overall. So I think if I do check out the film, I am fascinated to see what Rachel Zegler's going to do as Snow White, especially with her having some singing performances and stuff. I do want to see like just performance wise, which she's certainly going to bring to the character. But if I really can't remember the tale, I just remember, doesn't she eat the apple and she falls asleep and then she's got to be kissed to be woken up or some shit like that? I can't remember.
Yeah, that's exactly how it happens.
But it is one of those things where, if that's the knight, the male counterpart that we see in here, he doesn't look like he's about to do much of anything in this movie, honestly. He doesn't look like the imposing white knight that I was expecting to see, if that's who this guy's supposed to be. But I'm eager to see. I will watch it simply because I'm fascinated in it. I don't really have anything in the game attached to this, though. You know what I'm saying? What about you, Stu?
I may watch it when it comes to Disney Plus, or you know what? I'll see it in theaters if I hear good things about it. But like, because I have like zero interest in it, I doubt that'll happen. But if it's like, if it comes out in theaters, gets positive reviews, then I'll see it. But if not, then the only chance I'll probably see it is if it comes to Disney Plus and I got nothing else to watch.
Yeah, I feel you there. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts on some of the honorable mentions that we highlighted for you briefly in here. And then again, if you want to go ahead and submit your live viewer question over, now's the time. Go to our YouTube channel, click on that community tab, and boom, submit your question. And we'll get to them towards the end of the show. But Stuart, are you ready to get into our main topics today?
Always.
I'm gonna tee this one up for you here because Superman and Lois has officially come to an end. There is no more DC television on the CW. Shout out Greg Berlanti, man, and Mark Guggenheim for just the amazing universe that they wind up creating for such a long period of time. I still think it's underrated, Stuart. As much as I do think that people do appreciate it, I don't know if it gets enough appreciation for what it was capable of doing. I am one of those people that believe that they sort of created a DC cinematic universe before DC was ever able to fully achieve it properly, and look, and I'm a big fan of some of Zack Snyder's work in the DCU. I'm a big fan and supporter of Man of Steel. I loved his Justice League, his cut of the Justice League movie as well. But it was definitely with its ups and downs and its frustrations for a lot of fans. But if you were open to the idea of syndicated television and networks running with sort of lower budget storylines, I think I think the Arrowverse was incredible in what Berlanti and Guggenheim were able to put together, from some of its incredible suit work. I mean, the costumes some of the times were pretty incredible. Long running television shows. I think Arrow went on for like 7, 8. How long did Arrow go on for? How many seasons did Arrow have?
Arrow was 8 seasons.
8
The
seasons.
Flash was 9 seasons.
My God. I mean, they just really created a whole entire world there, from the interconnectivity, from the amazing crossovers. So shout out to them, man. I still think, as many people that do appreciate it, I still think it's a very underappreciated feat of what they were able to accomplish during that time period. And so, but it wraps up officially with Superman and Lois. Even though Superman and Lois isn't directly connected to the Arrowverse, this is where Tyler and Elizabeth wind up really getting their start, if you will, before becoming into Superman and Lois, the Juggernaut television series that a lot of people will certainly say came to an end too soon. So Stuart, I know you wanted to really talk about the final season here, or at least the final episode itself. So, sir, I'm going to give you the floor to discuss the final episode of Superman and Lois. What did you think of it, man?
Absolutely incredible, first of all. So I love how, when you look at the history of the superhero shows on the CW, obviously the big thing that comes to everyone's mind is the Arrowverse. But before that, we had Smallville. And I think it's just so fitting that we start the CW off, or the slate of superhero shows on the CW. We started off with Clark Kent in Smallville, and we end it with Superman in Smallville. And I thought that's just thematically, that's just actually a brilliant way for it to end.
I was kind of blown away by that, Stuart. I'm not gonna lie. So I did see that on Twitter, and I was like, that is the craziest statistic I've ever seen in my life. That it starts with Smallville and ends with Superman and Lois. I'm sure they didn't plan it that way, but the fact that it ended up that way really blew my mind.
It did. And I especially love how, like, with Smallville, you get Superman in his youngest years, and then Superman and Lois, you literally get him up to his oldest years, up until the point where, man, should I start getting into spoilers now? You know what? Let me get my non-spoiler thoughts first, and then I'll get into my spoiler thoughts. First of all, as a whole, this is one of the best season finales I have ever seen. If any of you are like me and you really love to have closure on all of your favorite characters, this is the most closure I have ever seen for every cast, or not like every cast, but in the show, but a good chunk of them get like a really nice send off. They have at least one really cool monologue towards the end, as they all kind of have like their last moment on screen together. It's absolutely so well written. And then, not to mention, it's just really satisfying, the very ending, with the big conflict between Superman, Lex Luthor, and Doomsday, how those all get resolved. I was wondering how Superman was going to handle, both Lex in an exo suit that's laced in kryptonite, and Doomsday at the same time, especially because he's getting weaker, whereas Doomsday is now basically more powerful than ever. He gets his more comic book accurate design back, and holy crap, he looks incredible for a CW show. Again, like, the budget was so low this season, but what they were able to accomplish with it, it impresses me. I think that if this was a high budget Hollywood film and I was watching that exact fight between Superman and Doomsday, yes, I would be like, wait, what? This is what we get? But knowing what they had going for them makes me appreciate, what they were able to pull off with Doomsday specifically. Loved his design, loved his fight with Superman. And then I also loved the way Jordan and Jonathan ended up helping in the end. I loved in the previous episode, I talked about them helping the people of Smallville escape, especially like that moment we got with Jordan really being able to help someone as they're having a panic attack. And then this episode with the two of them basically helping Superman take down Doomsday. And then I also love that really sweet moment when you think that Lex might have actually killed John, but then he turns out to be okay. But you have a really, really sweet moment between Jordan and Jonathan in that episode. And yeah, I think it all comes to a very satisfying conclusion that really goes out of its way to like let you know everything that happens in their future, with a time jump, with some really cool looking costumes that, you know, we didn't get to see much in action, but we do get to see them nonetheless, which is which is really cool. So now that I got my non-spoiler thoughts out of the way, time to talk about my spoiler thoughts on this. And like I said, closure. This episode gives you closure to the point where we not only get to see up until Superman and Lois's final moments, like on Earth before passing away, Lois unfortunately passing away of her returning, and then Superman passing away basically of old age, or you know, I guess the more technically he passes away of heart failure, and ironically almost in the exact same place his dad died, but then with Kyle there, he was able to give Clark, you know, a couple more days, able to kind of like rescue him before his heart fully gave out on him. So he had like a couple more days to say goodbye to his family. And right when you think that's it, like, okay, Superman just died. What else can we possibly show you? We get Superman in freaking heaven afterwards. And like, I'm just like, oh, this might be a little bit too cheesy, but no, the way the narration goes, the way they kind of show it through no dialogue, just some beautiful narration from Henry Cavill. You know, it's such a beautiful moment, as you know, you get one final scene of Superman basically kind of saying goodbye to everyone and then moving into heaven. And then also, I think what I thought was so beautiful is like during this scene, you know, we get Lex, and who at this point I think is like the only character in Superman and Lois that you feel like has no redeemable qualities at all. Like I meant what I said in the previous review, that he's the biggest man baby with like the worst victim complex you know, mentality, and like on top of all of that, like, you know, he's just a sociopath who only cares about himself. So he just is like the most unredeemable character in the show. But I love how like during this epilogue, we don't know what happened within the 32 years between when Superman took him down and the time that he died, but we just see Lex sitting there, you know, in you know, his metaphorical house, because of course, you know, it's heaven, but we still see him like in the farm in Smallville, because, you know, hey, we're not meant to take it too literal or anything, but we see him sitting there. And we just like kind of hear Clark talking about the things in life that are important, which is, you know, family, friends, you know, wonder. And then, you know, you see Lex and he sits with them for a moment, and then you just hear him say forgiveness as he then, you know, pats him on the back and then walks away. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it was just such a beautiful moment that I did not expect, because again, I didn't think you could possibly give a character like him redemption. And they don't necessarily redeem Lex Luthor, but I do like how they kind of imply that, oh yeah, whether it's through his time in prison or whether it's, you know, he had his own experience after he died, you know, that at some point he finally understood, wait, I was an asshole. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And then of course, you know, we get that final shot with him and Lois Lane together as they're both like, you know, kind of similar to what you got in with Oliver Queen and Felicity at the very end of Arrow, you know, with the two of them kind of in their own like afterlife. You get that with Superman and Lois, and man, such a beautiful shot. And Elizabeth Tulloch in that red dress looked amazing. Like, holy crap. You know, I was just like thinking in Clark's perspective, like, oh, I really am in heaven now. Yeah, so I thought it was awesome. And then I also I loved seeing the steel suit at the end have a more comic book accurate design to it. I'm just sad that we didn't get to see it in action, very much like with the Superboy suits that we get at the end. Like, they look incredible. A big part of me is just so sad that we never got to see either of them in action. And yeah, I think that overall this was kind of a perfect finale. I can't really think of anything I didn't like about it. Yeah, beginning to end, amazing. Perfect, again, perfect closure, and then a perfect climax to like everything that the season had been building up to.
Did you cry?
Yes, I did. I'm not afraid to admit it. When the narration started at the end, I was tearing up.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. I thought I saw some reactor online was posting the final couple scenes. I like even though I don't watch the series itself, I did watch the a clip of the heaven sequence, and I can see why people would be really emotional, especially if they've attached themselves to this show for such a long period of time. So I'm glad you loved it, man. Marcelino says people have been saying that Superman and Lois is the only CW superhero show that has 0 bad seasons with no filler. Would you agree with that?
Okay, even though I thought season 4 of Black Lightning wasn't the best, I didn't think it was bad per se. So I'd argue Black Lightning as well didn't have a bad season.
I was gonna say
yeah.
I was gonna say Black Lightning too, but I was like, I wonder if I'm biased in saying that. So I'm glad that you said that too.
Yeah. So apart from those 2 shows, yeah, no, I would mostly agree with that comment.
Yeah, that's the only other show that I could really think of, honestly.
Oh, I loved his casting as Gordon Godfrey. Yeah, it's so funny. I was so wrong when I heard that Tom Cavanaugh was going to be in Superman and Lois playing a character from the Superman comic books. And then, they kept building up to this character named Milton. I kept thinking, oh, he's going to be Brainiac. Oh my gosh. And then when he finally did premiere in the show, it's funny because he actually premiered in the same episode as Milton, which I think really helped, sell this because I think that's what they were going for. They were purposely trying to mislead fans. So when they finally do show him, he's in the same episode where they introduced Milton. And for Milton, it was just it was an actor that I didn't recognize, but I know he's been in some other stuff. But for Gordon Godfrey, that was who they had Tom Cavanaugh playing. And I'm like, oh, that douchebag from Young Justice. Okay. Because I don't remember too much of him from the comic books, but they didn't go too deep into his backstory. But like, if you kind of like, it felt like you could easily see him being like an agent of Darkseid, or he could just be the grounded reporter that we see him as in the show. And it's too bad that the showrunners didn't have a chance to expand on that, because I have almost no doubt, like if they had a 5th or 6th season, we would have probably gotten Darkseid, and that probably would have been a cool reveal to have with Gordon at some point.
Yeah, that probably would have been. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with his character in the comic books either, but interesting choice for them to bring him in the series itself. I gotta tell you, man, I gotta watch the show, man. I gotta watch the show. I'm really disappointed in myself because I really wanted to experience that with everybody else, man, because it looked incredible. I saw the image of, I guess it was Superman, his 2 boys, Steel, and was that Steel's daughter next to him?
Yeah. Starlight is what she's being called now in the show.
All flying together, and I was like, I posted this on Twitter. I was like, now this is a true reign of Superman right here, man. Like I thought that was pretty badass, just seeing that sequence of them all flying together. So really good stuff, Stuart. Appreciate you giving us your thoughts on the finale. How do you feel about the end of it all, though? I mean, what are you gonna do with yourself now, man? I mean, how do you feel with everything wrapped up?
I mean, I got James Gunn's Superman movie to look forward to. So the only thing I can do now is just hope that like it finds a new audience on HBO Max now that it's over. This is a show that I just feel like not enough people know about, because anytime I bring it up, like at work or something like that, no one knows what I'm talking about. People assume when they hear me say Superman and Lois, they're like, "Oh, you mean Lois and Clark, the Dean Cain Superman?" I'm like, no. So it's too bad, because I feel like if more people knew about this show, if more people were to checked it out, the fan base for the show would be huge. I think the only reason it's so small is just because no one knows about it, because I feel like most people don't even know the CW was still around, basically.
Yeah, I think I have seen some things like that on social media also. Let me ask you a question. And I really would like your perspective from a level-headed person here. I know you say like now you're going to look forward to James Gunn's Superman. I am sure that there are people out there that feel some type of way already about the concept of like James Gunn doing a Superman movie. There now being a completely new Superman and David Corn Sweat. And, there are people that I think, as they watch Superman and Lois, they get very much attached to sort of Tyler as their Superman. I've seen people saying, "This is my Superman. Tyler's my Superman." I guess I would say as somebody who clearly loves Tyler as Superman, he may be. I don't know if he's your favorite Superman that you've seen so far, but
I would say he is.
how do you mentally juggle the idea of your love for Tyler and also the idea like David Cornsweet's also going to be Superman?
Yeah, I mean, I think I look forward to seeing the performance he does. You know, it's funny because like I see some people trying to jump on a certain like train of saying, oh hey, this movie is the reason we're not getting a season 5 or 6 of Superman and Lois. And I'm just gonna say this, that could be true, but even if that is the case, you got to realize that if this show did continue, it was only going to get worse because the people in the CW are not running it the way they used to. They are now shifting to a more a bigger focus on basically reruns and game shows, basically unscripted television, because it's just cheaper to produce. Because with streaming services, it's a network television cannot make the money that they used to with now that they have to compete with streaming services. So on a business standpoint, I kind of get why it sucks, and a part of me wishes that, yeah, HBO might have picked this show up and let it renew for a few more seasons. But I also get why they didn't, because they have their own Superman that they're working on, and it wouldn't make sense for them to fund two different Superman projects at the same time. So I get it. It sucks, and I get why people are upset about it. But I think it's so silly when people are like, oh yeah, no, we blame James Gunn for Superman and Lois getting canceled, because if it wasn't James Gunn, there would have been some other thing that would have gotten the show off the air. So rather than being upset that the show ended early, I'm just happy that it ended on a good note. It got a much better treatment than, a show like Legends of Tomorrow or Batwoman, which never actually got real endings to their series. Legends straight up ended on a cliffhanger that's never going to get resolved now. And I'm glad we didn't get that with Superman and Lois. Instead, we had perfect closure for everyone. And so, now that we're done with this whole book, I'm totally ready to move on to another Superman, a whole new vision of the character. I just hope that, I'll say this. I don't think I'm going to enjoy him as much as Tyler Hoechlin, but that's also because they had kind of a bigger advantage in the fact that it was a TV show. And I feel like you can build up characters in ways on TV shows that you just can't do in movies. So while I'm really looking forward to David Cornsweet, and I know he'll do a great job, I'd be shocked if I liked him more than Tyler. But that being said, I'm still excited to see him play Superman. I'm still excited to see James Gunn's vision on the character. I'm always excited for more Superman.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I just hope the Superman and Lois crowd don't turn into Snyderverse people.
Oh God, no, I hope not.
In the sense of like, because Henry Cavill's not Superman, they don't want to go and see this movie. I just hope that they're still open-minded enough to allow, at least give David an opportunity to certainly shine. Because I don't know if we've had a bad Superman, honestly. Like I've enjoyed all of them in their own way. I may not necessarily enjoy like Superman Returns may not necessarily be my favorite, but I do think Brandon Routh does a great Superman also. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see how it goes, though. I Will One says Superman and Lois finale had me in tears. You ain't the only one, man. He says the show deserved more seasons, though. I definitely would agree. I would have liked to have seen HBO Max certainly pick it up for sure. Marcelino says some people love Tyler Superman so much that they thought he was the best character in Supergirl. He outshined everyone, and they wanted him to get his own spinoff. Well, yeah, he got his own spinoff out of it. I still think Supergirl should have like if CW continued along this path of doing superhero shows. I still wanted me a Legion of Superheroes television series.
Yes.
I know that would have been expensive as hell, but I really would have loved to have seen something along those lines. But we'll see.
Maybe now with James Gunn's universe, we could see that.
I could see him doing something like Legion of Superheroes for sure. Because he has a tendency of tapping into these. I don't want to say obscure, but I feel like that would be right up his alley. But yeah, guys, let us know your final thoughts on Superman and Lois, the series finale. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section box, whether that be you want to talk a little bit about the series itself, the season finale. We definitely want to know your thoughts, guys. But appreciate you, Stuart, and doing that review for us.
Yeah, that was Oh man. Oh yeah, and then as for Marcelino's question, yeah, I am sorry that I didn't do the weekly reviews like with the previous seasons. It's just, busy with work scheduling and everything. So it was like I think it was like last week I pitched you the idea of, hey, I could review the show during the podcast, then we could just do it that way. And yeah, I think it works out. I'm glad I got to give my final thoughts on the show as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I will once says ready for the DC Superman Creature Commandos was a good start. Yeah, I agree. I'm ready for DC Superman too. But with that out of the way, guys, we will go ahead and change course and move over to another fandom. As believe it or not, man, Harry Potter is in the news. This week we had like an explosion of upcoming information from the television series that I believe is set to go ahead and start filming in the summer of 2025. This series, for those of you who don't know, is set to go ahead and adapt the books, the novels, if you will. And if you say, well, didn't we just get that in like 7 or 8 Harry Potter films? Yes, we definitely did. But Warner Brothers wants to go ahead and dive back into this IP in order to really give a more proper remake of the novels themselves, which I believe they stated each season should be tackling a book. So it should give them the opportunity to get a little bit more in depth with moments from the book that maybe didn't necessarily make it into the films themselves, and really give us a new approach and a different look at the series and the novels themselves. So we did get a bunch of brand new information here this week, Stuart. So bear with us. We got details on the season, and we got some rumors in regards to casting updates for you guys. I don't believe anything has really been made official as of yet, but there are people that are in talks. There are some rumors, some names that in fact have been suggested. So let's go ahead and dive into this, Stuart.
Real quick though, before we get into the article, I just got to say how funny it is because, like, in fact, I actually see a comment about it here. They trying to pull a Percy Jackson. I'm cool with that. Because it's kind of funny how we had this with Percy Jackson and the Golden Compass, in the sense of, both they tried to pull off a movie franchise and they both failed, and so they ended up going with a TV show, one on HBO, one on Disney Plus, and then they ended up like working out so well in the end. So part of me is like, what if it's gonna end up being the opposite with Harry Potter? Like, you have the movie franchise, which is one of the most successful franchises in Hollywood, and then you get the HBO series that it ends up being a failure.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the movies themselves didn't, not the Harry Potter movies, but you're right, Golden Compass and Percy Jackson did not do really well. So I do wonder if this will backfire. Like, if people will look at, like, I don't think they looked at Percy Jackson like a cash grab, whereas like this, I think some people might feel like it's a little bit of a cash grab. But I will say I do know people that have loved the books themselves, but have that have loved the movies themselves, but have also complained in the sense like, man, I really wish that they had tackled this, from the novels, or touched upon this in the novels. So I do think that there is an appetite there for Harry Potter fans for the novels to get a more true adaptation. But I would agree with both you and Sharp Shenron in the live chat. It does feel like trying to pull a Percy Jackson, but maybe hopefully to their benefit. So we'll see.
Yeah. Cash grabs aren't always a bad thing. Like, I would agree this is a cash grab, but that doesn't mean it can't be a good movie. Or a good series is what I meant to say.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. So let's see here. What's the first? We'll go ahead and bring up the first topic that we want to talk about. This one is from Screen Rant. This lets us know Harry Potter Season 1 runtime revealed. So this is going to give us an idea as to like how long this season is going to be. It says the runtime for Season 1 of HBO's Harry Potter season has been confirmed. Francesca Gardiner, whose previous work book includes Succession, Killing Eve, and His Dark Materials. There you go. Isn't that the Golden Compass adaptation? Is the showrunner for the series. While Game of Thrones in the menus, Mark Mylod is an executive producer and director. It says Harry Potter has been touted as a faithful adaptation of the 7 Harry Potter books, with filming to commence during the summer of 2025. As per the official Harry Potter website, they shared, we have 8 hours to tell the first book, so we can dig into the real depths and crevices of how the language of magic can evolve. With so many HBO series having hour-long episodes, this means Harry Potter Season 1 will likely consist of 8 episodes. Previous comments in the reveal filming window have indicated that the series is expected to debut in late 2026 or in 2027. So it could be quite some time before this series certainly makes its way here. But it does look like 8 hours to tell the first book. So it does feel like this feels to me, Stuart, like it's either going to be um 8 episodes for sure, or, well, I feel like when it comes to HBO, it probably will be 8 episodes, because I don't feel like they treat us like Disney does, and it's like, oh, here's this 30-minute episode for you, by the way, or this 45-minute episode here. So there's a part of me that thinks like maybe this could be stretched out into 10 episodes, but I feel like the 8 episodes is probably right on par. What do you think, though?
Yeah, I think 8 episodes sounds about right. I especially because that's how they did it with His Dark Materials, and since this is also going to be on HBO Max, just like His Dark Materials, I would imagine with how successful that show was, they're going to follow a very similar structure.
Yeah, but I dig the concept here. I mean, I don't even know how long Sorcerer's Stone was. Maybe like 2 hours, if anything. So, I mean, the fact that they told that book within a 2-hour period compared to the 8 hours that we're going to be getting, I think if you're a fan of the Harry Potter novels, this has got to be really exciting for people to hear that, like, yeah, we're really going to get into the depths and, like she says, the crevices of the storylines here. So, I have read the novels. I've only gone through them once, though, so I can't say that like I'm a Harry Potter connoisseur, that I know all the details and stuff. Like watching the movie itself. I think I watched the movie first. I think I watched maybe like the first 3 films before I actually went ahead and started to read the novels themselves. So, I can't really make out like what they didn't put in the book or whatever case may be. It's certainly been so long. But if you are a big Harry Potter fan, I definitely would love to know like what moments from the novels you guys would certainly like to see in the series that didn't quite make the cut for the film itself. Because I definitely do think there's a lot to be mined there for sure.
I hope the first chapter is in the show because obviously I feel like it would have killed the pacing of the movie if they included it. But I always love that first chapter where they kind of build up to Harry Potter being dropped on the doorstep by having like people all over town like in cloaks and then just kind of like whispering among themselves going, "Did you hear? The Potters," that kind of stuff. And then what's his face? Dursley, the dad, Vernon, right? Or something. Vernon being like just very much like trying to tell himself, no, it's a coincidence. No.
Yeah, I definitely I am fascinated in the idea of this being told in the form of television. It definitely feels like it's allows for not only a slower burn, but just more attention to detail. And I do think it'll allow us to really get into, I think, the mindset and the emotions of these characters, unlike what the movie, was capable of doing, but I think on a more nuanced fashion that I think to us as viewers will really hit a little bit closer to home. So I am kind of looking forward to that for sure. What's the other topic here? Oh yeah, casting. Just for the main Harry Potter characters has been ridiculous. Variety.com says Harry Potter's HBO series to film in summer after 32,000 kids auditioned for lead roles. This isn't something that we see very often, I feel like, in Hollywood, in the sense of open casting. I feel like sometimes writers or directors have in mind people that they kind of want to see in particular roles. Maybe they have smaller auditions and whatnot available, or they have people in mind to come in and do screen tests or audition for themselves individually. But the idea of having an open casting like this of 32,000 kids, I mean, who knows? Maybe they find themselves like the next Hollywood star, the next gem here. But 32,000 kids is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Man, how many casting directors do they have? Because I can't imagine one person listening to or watching 32,000 auditions. That would drive me crazy.
It says the series will start shooting this summer in Leavesden, where the movie is also going to be filmed. During the presentation at Warner Bros. Discovery headquarters in London on Thursday, the showrunner revealed that the show had auditioned 32,000 kids for the lead roles, and that the casting team, hear this, is currently reviewing about 500 to 1,000 audition tapes a day.
Wow.
With the intent to watch every single one. Though he affirmed that they haven't made any final choices in regards to casting yet, Lloyd said that the next step will be to workshop with some of our shortlisted candidates in January. They also said that they're going to be sticking to correct canonical ages for the character. So Severus Snape will be in his 30s, while James and Lily Potter will be younger, as they were only 21 when they died. Lloyd teased, I think Severus Snape, when Alec Rickman played him, was like in his 50s or something like that. So they are definitely going, you could definitely tell that they're going more canonical age-wise. Lloyd teased that for the adult characters, he's looking to continue the tradition of brilliant theater actors in the UK, with the young actors, of course, all being newcomers. UK, I think, tends to have some of the most brilliant actors, man.
So my favorite bit of trivia for Alan Rickman as Snape in Harry Potter is that he knew from the first movie that he was going to betray, or quote unquote betray Dumbledore in the sixth film, because even though the book hadn't been out yet, J.K. Rowling had actually already talked to him about like where his character goes. So Christopher Columbus, the director of the first movie, would ask him questions like, "Hey, why are you playing him like this?" And Alan Rickman would just have to say, "You'll have to trust me on this one. It'll make sense in 6 movies."
Yeah, in 6 movies. Yeah, it definitely did come to make sense. Sharp Shenron said 32 casting directors, 1,000 apiece. Yeah, right. For sure. Marcelino says, I read somewhere that a 42-year-old man tried auditioning for Hermione. No way, bro. That's pretty funny if true. That's pretty funny if true.
I mean, if it's an open audition, anyone could send in tapes. Yeah, I could believe it.
Yeah, I can believe it. Harry Potter series being set to air over the course of a decade. Gardner said that she was excited to really dig into the character arcs and explore Hogwarts more, including the lives of its staff, beloved and feared alike. Lloyd agreed that their intention was not to undo what was done so brilliantly with the movies, but to evolve it. When it comes to the sets, Lloyd said that they don't want to mess with the Great Hall, but he's looking forward to expanding upon the architecture of Hogwarts and showing how it may have changed over time. I do wonder if I'm sure they probably don't even have those set pieces anymore. So I would assume that they probably would have to redo a lot of those set pieces as well. But yeah, I do believe I read somewhere that J.K. Rowling was back, or at least attached to working on this. I don't know if that was ever confirmed or whatever the case, but I would assume that she's probably still some level of creative consultant on this as well. But yeah, they're not messing around. What's up, Darth Gutierrez? Certainly good to see you in here. But yeah, so it looks like they're going to a lot of UK theater stars and open auditions to find really newcomers to hopefully play these kids here, man. So I think, wasn't the first Harry Potter like a big open audition as well, the original one?
Oh, probably. I don't know.
I didn't know any of these characters, any of these actors that wind up playing Harry, Hermione, and Ron. So there's a part of me that says that they had another open audition for their roles back in the day too. I might have to Google that though.
I would assume they purposely wanted to hire unknowns because they wanted to make sure they'd be available for future films so they could continue the franchise as they grew older.
I mean, that's true. I mean, they literally just said that they have plans on this going for a good 10 years, in the sense of like filming for a decade. So there is something really fascinating about them deciding to go with characters, certainly the canonical age. I think that'll definitely benefit them, especially if you plan on continuing to come back more and more and more each season and having these characters reprise their role. So I think the way that they're tackling this is very smart. So I am eager to see how this all comes about. Garth Gutierrez says, you might be right, Adam. It probably wasn't open. I think it might have been an open cast back in the day. So it looks like they're just kind of sticking true to tradition, but I'll have to Google that. When it comes to casting, I did want to bring up this one because I believe the gentleman that played the original Voldemort had some suggestions as to who he would like to see tackle the role. I think this comes to us from the independent.uk. Ralph Fiennes approves of wonderful choice to play Voldemort in the Harry Potter show. Again, this is his suggestion. He hasn't mentioned anything. It says Ralph Fiennes has given his seal of approval to Cillian Murphy. Should the Oscar winner wish to play Voldemort in the upcoming Harry Potter television series? No official casting have been made yet, but there was plenty of speculation around which major stars could play iconic roles such as Albus Dumbledore. Attention is now turned to who could play the main villain of this series, Lord Voldemort, which famously played in 5 Harry Potter movies. During an appearance at Bravo's Watch What Happens Live, Fiennes was asked about Cillian Murphy taking the role. The 61-year-old enthusiastically replied, "Cillian is a fantastic actor. That's a wonderful suggestion. I would be all in favor of Cillian." Yeah. So I thought he was the one that brought it up, but it looks like it was suggested to him and he was completely on board with him. And just for those of you who don't know, Cillian Murphy won an Oscar for Best Actor earlier this year for his portrayal of Oppenheimer in the Christopher Nolan film about the American theoretical physicist. And I mean, I will say this, and this is no offense to Cillian when I say this, but he has always had a unique look to me. He is always somebody in Hollywood that uniquely has kind of stood out just from his facial features alone. And you add a little bit of makeup to this guy, I love this suggestion for the role. I don't know if this is also open casting. I believe Murphy is from the UK, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like he's got a UK accent, but I would absolutely love it if he picked up this particular role. I'm wondering if it was offered to him or not. But what do you think, Stuart?
Dude, that sounds perfect. I don't think he would take it up because it's a TV show and because he's like a really big Hollywood actor. That would be kind of a big commitment for him. So I don't see it happening. But if it did, oh my gosh, yeah, I'd be down for that.
Yeah, I would definitely be down for this too, man. But that's just a suggestion. So we'll see who they wind up going with. Marcelino says, I don't know if I will or not because it's a reenactment of the movies, but because of Harry Potter has both turned into and the flaws it had in the beginning. I wouldn't necessarily call it a reenactment of the movies. I don't think that's a fair assessment. I think if anything, it's a more true adaptation to the novels itself. Because I don't think they're trying to take the movie itself and do face for face. Like you said, they're not trying to outdo or undo what the movie certainly did. I feel like this is more of a true adaptation, if you will.
Yeah.
Darth says Harry Potter the franchise never really caught my attention. Yeah, I just remember when I just remember I literally remember people going to Barnes and Nobles, being there midnight, like hordes of people outside trying to get these Harry Potter books. It was a thing. I think to say it was a thing is even an understatement. It was like a movement. All right. It was almost like as big as I was gonna say it's almost. I felt like it was like the Michael Jackson of young adult novels at the time. I don't know if I've ever seen so many people go to an opening day release of a Harry Potter book. I had not attended any of them until the very last book, and it was insane. It was insane when I went. So I don't know if people really understand how huge the Harry Potter franchise certainly was at the time. But yeah, man, it may not necessarily been for everybody, but it it was huge, Stuart.
I still remember the countless videos that you would see people posting online when the sixth book got released, and you would just have these assholes people would be standing in line and these assholes would be walking by going, Snape kills Dumbledore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I remember that like pissed that spoiler got leaked and it pissed so many people off. And yeah, that was like one of the biggest oh man, that was one of the biggest things that was like one of the first things to trend online, I think, because yeah, I remember there was a whole trend of that shit. It was insane. But yeah, in the seventh book in particular, you know what's crazy to me is how old was I think I was in high school, like a freshman in high school. I can't say for sure because it's actually I could just look up the date it came out and then I would know for sure, but whatever. Anyways, I just remember like how many people my age, and I thought this was insane at the time because for me, it takes me at least like a week to finish a book, especially back then, right? But no, I would hear people getting the book and then finishing the night they got it. I'm like, what? That's insane. Yeah, but people were talking about the whole book the next day. And I was just like kind of mind blown, like that many people actually read it that night.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing. It's amazing. Marcelina says, and let me clarify, I don't know if I'll watch it, not because it's a reboot, but because of the fact of everything Rowling has done and WB doubling down. I don't want to support it. Fair enough.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
I wouldn't want to support someone who doesn't support punching Nazis. Actual tweet from her.
Yeah, definitely understandable for sure, man. And then let's get into some casting rumors that are certainly going around, or at least some names that have certainly been suggested for upcoming roles that are seemingly being looked at. This one nearly broke the internet the other day. As if my thing will actually work here. Like, come on, bro. Come on. Are we gonna, what do we do? There we go. Finally. What's going on with you, Hollywood reporter?
Is it looking like that on your screen too, or just on the share screen?
Yeah, I'll try and reshare it again. Because it didn't look like that on my share screen. Yeah, why is it showing up as like all black? There we go. Papa Asedu eyed to play Severus Snape in HBO's Harry Potter TV show. The British I May Destroy You actor is being eyed for a fan favorite role in the eagerly anticipated fantasy series. So he's being eyed for the role. He hasn't necessarily been, officially been brought on yet, but it does say that HBO is circling British actor Papa Asedu to play one of the hottest TV roles being cast this year. The actor is up for the role of Professor Severus Snape in the HBO's Harry Potter TV series. Multiple sources tell a Hollywood Reporter. Sources say the actor has been offered the part, although it's not clear if negotiations have begun in earnest. Snape is the wickedly smart and casually cruel Hogwarts potions master who comes across as the story's primary antagonist in the show's final season. The role was famously played by late Alan Rickman across 8 Warner Brothers films. So far, no actors have been officially cast in the Harry Potter series, which is aiming for a 2026 debut, although Bridge of Spies actor Mark Rylance is close to being signed for a deal for the critical role of the wise and powerful headmaster Albus Dumbledore. The show is hot enough to conjure up several actor rumors, although the ones summoning Cillian Murphy for the role of Voldemort are not correct, sources say. So again, that was just a suggestion. We're not saying that he's up for the role, but his name was certainly thrown out there. Papa,
I had a really bad thought if he ends up getting cast as Snape. So like obviously original Harry Potter movie and book, Snape is very much the kind of person that you're like, oh yeah, I could see why, kids would think that he's behind everything going on, because they purposely, he's one of the best written red herrings, I think, in the first book.
Yeah.
But just like imagining if they're gonna cast a black man to play him, watch it just turns out like Harry Potter's just racist and that's why he suspects him.
yeah, Harry, it would be the black guy. Thanks a lot, buddy. Yeah. My God. It says if Papa Asedu lands the role, it will also be an example of HBO following through on its promise that the series would have a diverse cast and will presumably lead to a rather fresh take on the character. And a statement regarding the casting, HBO says, we appreciate that such a high-profile series will draw a lot of rumor and speculation. As we make our way through the pre-production, we will only confirm details as we finalize deals. And I think Asedu himself is like in his 30s as well, so it would go well with what the showrunners themselves said in the idea of like what we're trying to look for, going with a more canonically accurate age-wise for Harry Potter. So he would certainly fit the bill of age-wise for the role. And if anything, I do wonder if he's had some theater Broadway work, but he is a fellow UK actor also, British actor, so it would make sense in that regards. This kind of broke the internet, man. Look, it's at this point now, Stuart, where anytime a character is race swapped, I think we could just expect backlash, and I think that's it's really unfortunate that we live in that type of society now in 2024. Honestly, I feel like I'm living in the fucking Jim Crow era these days. It's kind of crazy. But it is one of those things where anytime anybody gets race swapped, boom, it's gonna have its haters in regards to it. I'm sure there's probably people going to be out there saying like, oh, this is a DEI hire or whatever the case may be.
Woke agenda.
Woke agenda again. I just hope that Warner Brothers protects Papa Asedu in that sense if he does wind up landing this role. I do hope that the production company does stand up for him if he does sort of land this role also. Because I think we've seen studios just really fail their actors in that regards, unfortunately. I love Alan Rickman. But I would be the first to tell you that I'm pretty sure Alan Rickman would be the first person to give this guy a hug and say, knock it out of the park, bro. I think Alan would be completely on board with this casting himself. And at the end of the day, that's all it comes down to for me. Like if the casting directors, if Rowling's on board, if I'm sure Alan Rickman would have been on board. That's all I need to know. It other than that, this casting doesn't bother me in any sense of the imagination. And I am a believer in the sense of your main job as somebody that has to create a show is to get the best person for the role. Mm-hmm. And you want your actors to be able to embody these characters and bring them forth in a way that really works and allows the content that you have on your page to really shine. And while I get the idea that some people are upset, and yes, I know Severus Snape in the books is described with a particular skin complexion or whatever the case may be, his skin color does not have anything to do with who he is as a character. Like it does not move his story forward in any way whatsoever. And so I'm completely okay with the idea of them race swapping Severus Snape, especially if it's to the point where Papa Asedu just came in, had an incredible take on the character that really uplifted the material itself. And just performed and auditioned and screen tested better than anybody else did. And sometimes that's what it just comes down to, Stuart, is that sometimes you are just better than other people for the role. And I know that's hard for some people to understand sometimes. But again, there's nothing about Severus Snape that his story cannot continue or be pushed forward with him being a different race or a different color. If the casting directors, if WB are happy with it, I'm sure Alan Rickman would have been happy with this too. So I'm cool with it, man. I'm absolutely cool with it. I hope he nails the role if he's offered the role. So we'll see what that ends up being. But you have any thoughts on it, Stuart?
Oh, I just 100% agree with everything you just said there. I'm excited to see how he does. And to be honest, I'm kind of happy that they didn't just go with an Alan Rickman look-alike, because we already got an Alan Rickman Snape and it was so perfect.
So
Why
perfect.
try to just do that? Why do that all over again and get
Yeah.
like an inferior version of Alan Rickman? Just,
Yeah.
give us an actor that'll give us a very, I don't want to say completely different take on Snape, because obviously there are aspects of the character from the book you have to keep. But I don't see why we can't keep those aspects with a person, that just happens to be a different ethnicity from Alan Rickman. So, as for the actor they chose, I'm not super familiar. Like I've seen, I think I've seen him in Black Mirror, but other than that, I haven't seen too much, so I can't say my opinion on like how he's going to do in particular in this role. But I'm excited to see it. I'm excited already knowing that they're, seemingly it seems like they're not going to just try to copy and paste, everything that the movies already did, right? Rather, they're just going to give their own take on the story, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I feel like finding somebody that just looks like Alan Rickman as Severus would have been a really disservice, not only to the character, but I think Alan Rickman's memory too. I like the idea that it's not a copy and paste, that they are really trying to make this significantly different in a sense, or just like you said, a fresher take on this on the content. So we'll see how this turns out, man. But yeah, that definitely broke the internet for a couple of days. Blossom says, I agree. Race shouldn't matter, dude. Talent does. Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. Some people, that's a really hard pill for them to swallow, unfortunately. He's Blossom says there should be a bit more black folks in Hogwarts. Personally, as a Black Ravenclaw, him playing Snape would be great. Blossom says the movie and the book ain't the only source material. They also have to make room for their imagination. Perfectly said.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have one more update for you guys in regards to other casting names that have been dropped. I do want to bring this up. This is from more casting rumors. Harry Potter cast. Oh, goodness. All these ads just pop up these days. My God. Deadline, Harry Potter casting rumor mill hits overdrive with big names eyed for iconic roles. As we see people like Mark Strong put out here also. Is that, for some reason, I was like, is that Gandalf? That's a terrible Dumbledore image to use, bro.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing.
I was like, why do they put Gandalf in this image? If there was an awareness tracking for a TV series slated to premiere in 2 years, Harry Potter would score through the roof. From the moment the faithful adaptation of the beloved books was officially announced as a decade-long series, the project has been the subject to unprecedented fan interest and scrutiny from author Rowling's role as the executive producer. Including the elaborate search for a writer, which resulted in the hiring of Succession's Francesca Gardiner. The frenzy now has reached fever pitch as the series has begun casting ahead of its 2025 start date. Let's see here. It says amid the frenzy, yada yada. Amid a level of secrecy and draconian NDAs of Marvel proportions for all talents involved, there have been a trickle of names rumored for some of the most iconic roles, which are expected to be cast younger than the movies. Let's see. The first name to make rounds is Oscar winner Mark Rylance for the role of Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts, played by the late Richard Harris and Michael Gambon in the movies. Mark Strong more recently emerged as a prospect for the part. I don't know what Mark Rylance looks like, but I do like Mark Strong, but he just does not fit a Dumbledore to me. Maybe I'm tripping though.
Ooh, that. Because yeah, I couldn't remember who Mark Strong was for a minute, and now looking at him, yeah, he's a great actor. I don't know if I would have cast him as Dumbledore. If anything, I could see him being a good Professor Quirrell.
Yeah. But yeah, I just thought, and Mark, first off, I know Mark Strong is bald, so I know he's gonna be wearing a wig anyway, but it just feels like it's gonna be weird to me. I think he wasn't Mark Strong just in didn't he just play in the Penguin as what's his name? Falcone? I thought that was Mark Strong. Maybe I'm wrong though.
He wasn't Falcone. He was like Falcone's assistant, if I remember correctly, but he was definitely in the Penguin. What was his character's name? I totally forgot.
It says the rumor mill also has been hyping the late Emmy-nominated Bad Sisters creator and star Sharon Horgan as being eyed as deputy head mistress Minerva McGonagall, portrayed by the late Maggie Smith in the movies. There's also been conflicting information whether Oscar winner Rachel Weisz is also on the wish list for this role. I'm not too familiar with Sharon, but that's a picture of her right there. You have Maggie Smith as Professor McGonagall, but now it's possible that Sharon Horgan might be playing her. So we'll see how that one turns out. And then, meanwhile, the Emmy-winning Ted Lasso fan favorite Brett Goldstein has been rumored for the role of the gamekeeper Rubus Hagrid. And then none of the actors are believed to have formal offers. So Brett Goldstein, he looked familiar, but I hadn't really watched the Ted Lasso series too much, but he is being eyed for Hagrid here. I can kind of see it. Especially if they put like a suit on him and costume and makeup and stuff. I can kind of see him playing that role. But yeah, I'm kind of curious as to like who the fan casting is around some of these actors.
Yeah.
Blossom says, R.I.P. Maggie Smith. I'll miss her as McGonagall very much. Yeah, for sure.
So many of the Harry Potter actors. Yeah, it's crazy how old that franchise is, to the point where, yeah, a lot of them have now passed away, unfortunately.
Marcia says Mark Strong was Falcone because John Turturro refused to come back because he didn't want to hit women in the Penguin.
That's right. I remember hearing about that. Which
I didn't really care for Mark Strong's performance in that as Falcone personally. I mean, I like him as an actor, but I just don't. I personally don't see him as a Dumbledore. Personally, that's just me.
Yeah, same here. Like, I feel like there's a lot of other roles in Harry Potter that he would be perfect as. I just don't see him as Dumbledore.
Yeah, that one's just not hitting me. But we'll see. Again, none of these actors have been offered the role as of yet. So we'll see how who winds up landing it. I would assume we probably won't get anything official until next year, at least maybe during the holiday seasons. Maybe like I don't know, who knows? Maybe like January or sometimes around Valentine's Day. Maybe we'll have a better idea as to who's actually been offered a role. So we'll see.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing about this. There were like specifically, was it the third or the fourth one, the prom one, where like she didn't have a lot of screen time in the movie compared to how much in the book, but like I guess the way the Asian character was written in the book was very very stereotypical from what I've heard. Oh, you're muted.
But yeah, that's all the updates we have for the upcoming Harry Potter TV series. I personally am excited for it, man. I enjoyed the movies. This is probably something I probably will end up watching. Sorcerer's Stone for me, the first Harry Potter movie is very much a Christmas movie. It is one that I watch every Christmas also. But I'm gonna go ahead and give it a shot. I'm gonna give it a shot and see what it's like. But I'm eager to see how things come along here. And just hearing the showrunners, especially, and the executive producers on here and their mindset of how they want to tackle the season, it gives me a little bit of faith that they might be onto something here. So we'll see how it turns out.
Definitely. I wouldn't say I'm like excited for it, but I am looking forward to it. And undoubtedly I'll be checking it out when it comes out.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts in regards to the Harry Potter TV series. Has there been any information that's really jumped out at you that you're excited for, worried about? We definitely want to know your thoughts in the comment section box below. And with that out of the way, Stuart, we will move on to our next topic. We're going to get into some Marvel bag here. We will start off a little bit with an upcoming movie, as we have Kraven the Hunter that's set to go ahead and drop this upcoming Friday, believe it or not. I don't know if you guys have gotten your tickets yet. I probably will try and see if I can check it out on Thursday or Friday. I am off of work beginning on Wednesday, so maybe I'll make the next couple of days some movie days, as we got two big movies that I'm really looking forward to dropping this week. We got Kraven the Hunter dropping on the 13th, and then we got the Lord of the Rings movie, The War of the Rohirrim, dropping on the 13th as well. But since we are in the week in which Kraven the Hunter is going to drop, I thought it'd be pretty interesting to give ourselves a little bit of a preview and get ourselves hyped and ready for this movie. If you can get hyped for a Sony Pictures superhero film at this particular point in time. But we wind up getting ourselves an 8-minute clip earlier this week. We did talk about it over on our YouTube channel. I do have a video up there if you want to go ahead and hear my thoughts on the 8-minute clip. But I will say the 8-minute clip has opened my eyes a little bit. I'm very cautiously intrigued to kind of see how this movie is going to turn out. I think the director himself this week did a couple of interviews with comicbook.com I thought would be interesting to dive into. But Stuart, I got to ask you, did you have the opportunity to check out the 8-minute clip at all by any chance?
I did not, honestly.
I mean, it looked like they say it was the first 8 minutes of the movie, and I believe them, but I do feel like there's some context or taken out. I do think they was probably like edited down a little bit to fit the first 8 minutes so that it's more action packed, but I have a feeling that there's probably more dialogue and arc. So it wouldn't surprise me if the true first 8 minutes is really like the first 15 minutes of the movie itself, but it was enough to certainly grab my attention. But let's go ahead and dive into this because we do have a couple of articles here.
I hope it's not like, oh man, I can't remember the name of the movie. It was like the City of 1,000 Planets. But it was. Oh my gosh. But it was a Sony movie where they released like the first like 5 minutes during Spider-Man. I believe the first Spider-Man Tom Holland movie. They released the first 5 minutes of this movie. And it was so incredible because they had the song Ground Control to Major Tom playing as like, you see a space station built from, on top of Earth. And you see like, it slowly gets bigger and bigger as more alien races start to join it, creating like, the giant like space station that becomes like the City of 1,000 Planets. Such an amazing intro. And then the movie itself was pretty bad. So Sony marketed it perfectly by only showing the best part of the movie as like kind of the preview. So hopefully that's not the case with Kraven the Hunter.
I mean, you definitely bring up a good point, right? That could have been the best 8 minutes of the entire film. We'll have to see. But the director on how to make a great film in Spider-Man's universe for Sony, that's an interesting question. We'll see what he responds. He says, that puts a lot of pressure on JC Chandor, as Sony has tasked him with creating a blockbuster movie people actually want to see, while connecting it to the bigger Sony Spider-Man universe and introducing classic comic book characters the average moviegoer is not familiar with. It's a challenge that Chandor was all too aware of during production of Kraven the Hunter. He says, look, I have enough characters in this world that I was given with my partners in this, and I had to create new versions of those characters in some cases and bring them on film for the first time with many of the other characters and have them all seamlessly fit into our little story for audiences who don't know who the Chameleon is what JC Chandor told Comic Book. He says, how do you slowly introduce that character as the film progresses so that by the time the film ends, you're like, oh my God, I get who that guy is. How do you do all those things while also telling the story that moves the plot of these movies along? That all ends with something people want to have more of. He says, when faced with the trials of writing a new chapter, Chandor's solution was to take a step back and concentrate his energies on the story at hand. Kravinoff's formative years and dark family drama as a son of Russian mob boss. He says, so instead of making creative choices for the franchise's sake, the filmmaker built his version of Kraven the Hunter so the audiences can enjoy it, even if they don't follow the SSU projects. He says, I don't... goodness, come on. He says, I don't want to give away too many plot points, but the way that our film is structured, the rest of those worlds don't really matter. If I told this version of this story really freaking well and aimed for quality of storytelling, and then with Aaron Taylor Johnson and our action team and the things we've come up with, I think people are going to be really excited about that. But my goal was to kind of isolate our movie, protect it, and just tell, a good damn story. He says it's a very grounded story. My favorite storylines in the Spider-Man world are street level stories. There are obviously some stories that end up in outer space and everything else, but ours does not. It's very much based here in our world. So, look, I'm not going to lie, Stuart. It is kind of comforting to hear him talk about the idea that for him, story comes first. It also is intriguing to me, the idea that he brings up something like the Chameleon, in the sense of like, I really have to rework sort of the origin story of Chameleon, or create this character in a new way, so that not only is he fresh, but that by the end of the movie itself, people know who he really is. And so it does make me wonder, look, we have seen the Rhino in here. So there are some supernatural aspects, I should say, or at least some level of abilities and powers in here. So it does make me wonder if we will see the Chameleon achieve his abilities by the end of this movie, if we will have sort of a shape-shifting character at some point in here to finally give that aha moment as to who he is. Because the Chameleon and Kraven are in fact siblings, if I'm not mistaken, in the comic books. So the fact that he has all these characters to work with, and he's also trying to juggle them into a story that certainly makes sense, I kind of appreciate this movie being separated from everything else. I do feel like Sony needs a big win, and in order to do that, it feels like Sony has to be very hands off and just let this man direct and let the story kind of be told. And the way that he talks about it, it almost feels like he got that privilege, in the sense of being able to really separate itself and just focus on the story. So I'm not expecting like a news article or a news report to pop up and have like a Eddie Brock or Venom reference or a Spider-Man reference in here. Based off of one of the writers in this movie coming from the Equalizer films does give me some hope, and seeing some of J.C. Chandor's previous work gives me hope that he can allow this movie to really be grounded and gritty in that mob world that he's kind of created, with some level of superhuman ability. So I dig what he's saying here. For me, as an outsider looking in, that's very speculative, like skeptical, I should say, of Sony Pictures. The idea that he continues to emphasize story as much as he does gives me some relief that, please get this right. Please get this right. Because I feel like his focus is in the right place at this point in time. But what do you take away from what he said there?
Yes, it very much kind of reminds me of what James Gunn has been saying, when it comes to his DC universe, the idea that like we want to tell individual stories that just happen to build a world, rather than having all these stories build up to a completely different story. I think that's what Sony should have like kind of done from the start, but they kind of ended up, I feel like with since Venom, that's kind of been like their goal. Like you could tell is like, we really want to set up our own cinematic universe. So we're setting up the world first, and story is more secondary to us. So hearing that, like, it sounds like they're going the opposite direction with this movie is definitely the smarter move. Yeah. And I do think that, I do think that he's being honest, and that he's not like just talking out of his ass trying to say what he wants people to hear. Because I feel like, after so many duds from Sony's got to realize they have to try something new now. So hopefully that's what they do with this movie. They allow him to just, they're hands off. They allow him to just tell his story, a story that works for this movie in particular, and isn't just meant to be another setup for other movies going forward. I do really look forward to seeing how this turns out.
Yeah, me too, man. I really want this to be a successful movie. I really do. I know I crap on Sony movies, but I feel like they're deserving of it. And so, but that doesn't mean that I want them to make bad movies. Because look, Sony Pictures does not want to give up their Spider-Man franchise. They do not want to give up these characters. And so they will continue to push out movie after movie after movie. I just hope that the backlash that they've gotten from some of their previous movies has embarrassed them enough to be like, let's at least put a better effort going forward. Like it may not be Oscar worthy or an Oscar winner, but if we can get some really qualified filmmakers and writers to just create stories, maybe it will bring in better audiences and we can rebuild our reputation in some capacity or another. But like the proof is going to be in the pudding at the end of the day, but I do think the director here is saying all the right things in regards to what I think us as fans want to hear when it comes to making a movie, especially when it comes to Sony's situation right now.
Yeah. And the best part is, like, even if this movie ends up being bad, I think I'll still be entertained because, you know, there's always something fun about like all the bad Sony movies. Like even from
That's true.
Like
That's
even
true.
from Morbius and Madam Web, there's always just something I can find enjoyment of, whether it's Dakota Johnson's really bizarre acting choices or whether it's Morbius's like just weird lack of, I don't know what you would call it, consistency or coherence in its story or structure. You know, there's always something I can find entertaining about it. And I'm sure if this movie sucks, I'll find something in this to enjoy too.
Yeah, absolutely. He also sat down with comicbook.com again. This one says Kraven the Hunter director talks balancing crime drama and Marvel fantasy in one movie. He says, while the Superman is a classic, remembered fondly of how it pushes special effects, Chandor was in awe for a whole different reason. He says, even though that character was flying around and there were lots of things happening, it felt of our world and it felt like it was happening right outside my door. That's precisely the kind of energy he's bringing to Kraven the Hunter. In Chandor's words, he says, I think when people see this film, they'll realize that while we have a Rhino character and we have Kraven being Kraven, it all feels like it's of a world that matches. He says, during our interview, Chandor explained how Kraven the Hunter uses Marvel fantasy to tackle relevant current issues. According to the director, the world of Kraven is one that we can see reflecting the challenges of our own world in a way, which is trying to have justice maybe not take as long as it does. While Sony has been keeping Kraven's story under wraps, we know the movie leads its characters on a quest for revenge, so it seems that Kraven will become the world's most feared hunter while seeking reparations for the wrongdoings the traditional Justice Society could not properly deal with. He says the story's thematic complexity elevates Kraven the Hunter from a simple comic book movie. So while Kraven got superpowered upgrades for the film, he should still feel like a character that can exist in our reality. He says the instincts that Kraven has are all the ones that I hope are grounded. So we'll see how that turns out. What do you think about that though, Stuart?
Yeah, that's something I always love about comic books and comic book movies and shows is they can reflect real world issues without having to be too direct about them, but kind of like, being obvious enough to where we're like, okay, I see what we're actually trying to say here. And yeah, most of the time, there are times where it's done like not as good as others, but that's to be expected. It's just like telling a story, so not everything is going to hit the way you want it to. But yeah, I think that's I'm very curious how, though, with a character like Kraven, how it's going to reflect the real world, or in what exact kind of message the director is trying to get across. The big thing is just making sure that if you do have like a good message that you want to put into your movie, that you're not like in your face about it. You're not like stopping the plot in order to directly tell the audience what the message is. Cough, cough, Batwoman, and cough, cough, Supergirl season 6.
Yeah, no, I totally get you there, man. I enjoy when movies are able to do something like that. The concept of sort of taking justice into your own hands, or taking justice because the system is too corrupt or it's a little bit too slow to act, I feel is very prevalent in today's society for sure.
like when I was doing my my rewatch of my rewatch of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, what shocked me was how many episodes are still relevant today, especially when it came to the Bajoran occupation and just kind of like stuff that you look at that's happening in the real world, like as a whole. It's like, man, like either because I know there were probably just similar things going on in the 90s as that we have right now, but it almost feels like they're predicting the future, like not in a good way, like we want in our usual Star Trek media. It's like they're predicting all the negative things about the future way too well.
I do think, I mean, not only is that great storytelling and writing, but I think that's so Star Trek though. I think Star Trek's been doing that for years in the sense of being able to tackle those societal issues in such a futuristic way, but it's like, damn, it still hits close to home. And I know this isn't too far in the past, but I just had a rewatch of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and damn, if the if the themes of that series still doesn't hit like 3-4 years later, man. I made a video one time of why I think Sam Wilson is the perfect Captain America for the 21st century. And after watching the series again, I'm like, yeah, man, like we really need somebody like a Sam Wilson, especially when he starts talking to the senators. His storyline with Isaiah Bradley that he's got to struggle with, also the concept of a black man holding the stars and stripes and whatnot, and all the people that like push back on the concept of that's not my Captain America. Steve Rogers is my Captain America. Sam Wilson's just like, it's like the series is literally speaking to you guys. Like it's literally a message to you people that feel a certain type of way about Sam Wilson. And not just from like, I mean, you can have your criticisms, but you know what I'm talking about. Like there's clearly a group of people out there that feel some type of way of Sam Wilson. And it's one of those things where I hope that message also comes across in something like a Captain America 4 Brave New World, because I think it's still a message that needs to very much be heard. So kind of crazy how great writing can do that.
100%. It's crazy how like that show kind of got released at the perfect time, because it was right around the time like where the Black Lives Matter movement was really kicking off, because I think it was after the unfortunate death of wow, I am such an asshole. I forgot his name. George Floyd. Yeah, thank you. Because yeah, it was like the show like came like just like a few months after that like whole incident happened. So I think it was just like perfect timing with the show. And I obviously it's not like Disney planned for that, but I just think like it just came out at a perfect moment.
Yeah, it solidified for me watching it again. I'm like, man, I really enjoyed this damn series. Like I really enjoyed it. But yeah, guys, let us know. We went on a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, let us know your thoughts on Kraven the Hunter as it winds up dropping this Friday. So get your tickets now if you're interested in checking out the movie itself. And with that out of the way, Stuart, we will move on to our next topic of the day. That was kind of a more Sony Marvel, but we're going to get into our Marvel bag now, as Thunderbolts is in fact back in the news here this week. David Harbour decided to go ahead and talk a little bit about the dynamics between some of the characters that we're going to be getting in this upcoming film. And I've said this before, Stuart, and I even made a little short clip of this too. So we have, we have some proof if this turns out to be true. But I really do think that Thunderbolts is going to be the best MCU movie of 2025. I know it's got some stiff competition with Captain America 4, along with Fantastic Four, that a lot of people are looking forward to as well. But I just think something about Thunderbolts, especially me fresh off of Falcon and the Winter Soldier and seeing some of these characters already, I have a lot of hope for this. And hearing David Harbour talk about it this week gives me even that much more hope for this upcoming movie. So let's go ahead and dive into it. This one actually comes to us from Inverse.com. David Harbour teases Thunderbolts dynamic. I don't think any of them get along. Is what he wound up saying in here. He says, what happens when you put a couple of reformed super soldiers in a room with an ex-assassin, a mercenary, and a corrupt Contessa? Nothing good. But that's the premise of Thunderbolts, Marvel's newest superhero team movie, starring Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Sebastian Stan, and more, which features a group of misfit anti-heroes reluctantly forced to team up with the CIA director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. And you can call her Val, but don't call her Val. The result looks like to be one of Marvel's most electrifying new movies, a movie that breaks more than a few rules of the MCU, not the least of which is Thunderbolt's unique team dynamic. David Harbour says, I don't know that any of them get along. David Harbour, who plays Red Guardian, tells Inverse, there might be one or two friendly relationships. Red Guardian raised Yelena Belova as his daughter, after all, but apart from that, the team seems destined to butt heads the entire movie. Harbour, who is currently promoting his new superhero role, Eric Frankenstein in Creature Commandos, teases the team dynamic that is full of provocation. He says they're thrust together as the worst people in the worst situations. I think that's fun of the movie. I think that's the fun of the movie, is that it's the opposite of a love triangle. This person hates this person, hates this person, hates this person, and is annoyed and wants to get rid of this person. But Harbour has nothing but love for his co-stars, whom he says he instantly connected with and felt instant chemistry with. It really translates on the screen, Harbour says. It's almost a happy accident that Harbour managed to become part of such a close-knit team. Harbour reveals that when he was cast in Black Widow around 4 years ago, he didn't know who Red Guardian was, but the way that it was written in the script and how it functioned within this particular cinematic relationships with some of these, with some of those things were revelation. So I said, I just want to play this guy. Harbour's enthusiasm for the character is palpable in the lead up to Thunderbolts, but we'll have to see how that plays out on screen next year. So Stuart, I'll start off with you here, man. What are your thoughts on how he mentions about this, that not only does he feel the on-screen chemistry in here, but he clearly loves the dynamic that everybody brings, but it's very much the opposite of a love triangle. This person hates this person, that hates this person, that's annoyed by this person and wants this person dead. Like it seems like it's all over the place, but there could be something there. What do you think, though?
You know, I gotta say, love triangles have always been my least favorite trope in movies or novels. So the fact that they literally call this the opposite of a love triangle, that kind of gets me excited. I love these characters, even though some of them we don't get a lot of. I just, they've always been great as like kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Supporting cast members. They've always been great supporting cast members, and now we get to see them all together. And I look forward to seeing the way they're all going to butt heads. I love how, one of the cool things too about all these characters is that, while not all of them are necessarily I don't think any of them you could say are really 100% terrible. There's a redeemable factor in every single one of them. It's just that I think what's redeemable about all of them is completely different. You know what I mean? Because for the Winter Soldier, for example, I would say that at this point he's mostly a pretty reformed dude, from who's really trying hard to make up for his past. But then you get a character like Red Guardian, who I would say his morality more comes from his in his own twisted way, how he really did kind of care for, his two daughters, even if he didn't, show it like a good dad should, because he was very quick to be like, okay, back to being a spy. You kids go away and go back to, your spy training and all that. The fact that he was able to give that up so easily, yes. But when he did reunite with them, in his own twisted way, there was clearly he did care for them in his own twisted way, and I think, so that's basically what you can say about all these characters, is that they all have a morality in some area, but it's always in a different area. And the fact that a lot of them also have really bad history with each other, I think that's also going to be what's going to help this play out to be a really fun butting heads kind of movie. Overall, I kind of agree with you. I'm going to say that I know we got a Fantastic Four movie coming out next year, and we got a Captain America 4. But I think this is the one that I'm kind of looking forward to the most. It feels like a very different take in the Marvel universe. It feels like we're finally getting something a little bit different, something that isn't necessarily world ending. Thank God. I am so sick of every threat being world ending in these Marvel movies. So I'm so glad we get kind of just a movie where it's just people who are not getting along, but they have a very specific mission and they have to learn to work together, you know. Yeah, it's all going to depend on execution. The premise is there, the characters are there, the setup is perfect. I just hope they can like stick the landing when this movie comes out to theaters. Oh, you are muted.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hope that they certainly stick the landing also when it comes to this. Yeah, man, I'm really hyped for it. I truly am. I would agree with you that this does feel different from what we've gotten from other MCU movies. The fact that we do have sort of this ragtag bunch of people, I'm really excited. And if anything, I will say this: I really enjoy a lot of these individual characters because you're right. When it comes to somebody like the Winter Soldier, like I literally just finished watching the Winter Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he did go on his own sort of needing to be redeemed storyline, you know, having to make amends with people, having to certainly say sorry and do his part to not only forgive himself, but, you know, put in the work as Sam Wilson certainly advised him to. And so I am curious to see where Bucky's at in this stage of his life after the events of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, especially with somebody like a John Walker. You know, Story, you bring up a point that all these people have something that they need to redeem about themselves, that, you know, they may not necessarily have been evil, but they might have done things that they need to kind of like course correct. And after the events of John Walker and, you know, the death of his partner Lamar, being thrusted into the spotlight of Captain America, all the societal pressures that come with it, him taking the super soldier serum that kind of like pushed him over the edge a little bit, you know, he feels like he also has to make up for everything. I mean, the US government literally stripped him of everything from benefits to like just acknowledging his incredible record that he had in the military. And if it wasn't for Val, he literally would not have anything in his life right now, right? So I'm sure that there is a level of something that he's got to prove to himself. I am kind of curious if he's been up to anything since the last time that we've seen him in Falcon and Winter Soldier, if he's been on any mission sort of thing, or if this is the first time Val's like, remember that time when I said, when I call you to pick up the phone? Maybe this is the first time that he's actually picking up the phone. So I will be really curious to see how somebody like him gets along or doesn't get along with somebody like Yelena. You know, you mentioned the idea of Red Guardian not necessarily feeling like he might have been the best father. You know, I'm sure Yelena probably wishes she was a little bit of a better sister, you know, and I think from the trailers alone, you get to see that the death of her sister has kind of put her in a rut where she feels like she's just living her life in circles and just doing things to do them and trying to maybe find some meaning for herself. And so I just think we have a lot of really great characters that have either been underutilized in the past, that have a lot to certainly redeem for themselves. And I think are really going to get that opportunity to truly shine. I mean, just from the trailers alone, of seeing them all in the Buick together or in the car together, like just a brief little chemistry that we get with some of the back and forth. I think we're going to get some incredible dialogue, incredible sentimental and emotional moments between these characters, and a great action. And I will say this too. One of the things that does give me hope about Thunderbolts, and I've talked about this in the past, but if you guys have not watched the Netflix series Beef or the Hulu series The Bear, I think that they're probably some of the best quality television series on streaming that we've gotten since 2023 and here in 2024 also. Both series have in fact been nominated for Emmys, if not won Emmys. And I bring those two shows up because of the fact that both the writers from those shows are the writers for Thunderbolts. I believe the Beef writer wind up doing the initial draft, and then they handed it over to be finalized and worked on from the writer of The Bear. And all of them, mind you, have worked closely with the director in Jack Schaefer in this film. So there's a lot of shorthand. There's a lot of understanding what the director's looking for. It kind of reminds me of like the relationship that John Watts and Christopher Ford on Skeleton Crew have with their director, directors and a David Lowery and a Bryce Dallas Howard. The fact that they were all friends growing up, that they all went to the same high school and same college, right? So they know each other so incredibly well that I think that they just uplift each other's work. And I do think that when you get somebody like a Jack Schaefer and the writers of Beef and The Bear on here that know each other so well, and have worked with big ensemble casts and know how to get into sort of emotional arcs and have those incredible chemistries on screen. I think when you combine that along with this group of characters in here, when David Harbour talks the way that he does about the dynamic between these characters and how he seems to really be excited for it. I think that's the reason why he's excited for it, because I do think, Stuart, that they have something really special here, and I hope that they knock this out of the park, man. Even I will once, as I'm hyped for the Thunderbolts. And I think if anything for me too, Stuart, everything is in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea who the villain of this movie is. Like, I have no idea what the overall premise of this movie certainly is still supposed to be. And I think that kind of intrigues me and fascinates me. I expect like another trailer at least for Thunderbolts at some point in time, but there's still a mystery here that I really don't know what this is going to devolve into or connect to as far as a bigger story goes. But I'm really excited for this film, man. I truly am.
I know some people will complain a lot when a lot of Marvel villains tend to be kind of boring and then just like kind of forgettable. This is the kind of movie where I'm okay with that if that's the route they go, because I don't think you need a good villain for this movie. You just need to, have a good challenge for these characters. So as long as the villain has a good challenge for them to overcome, I don't care if the villain's character himself is very forgettable, or her. We don't know what the gender of this villain is going to be, but yeah, if they're a boring villain, I think I can tolerate that for this movie.
Yeah, it might work. It might be like I don't want to necessarily compare it to like Birds of Prey, but Birds of Prey didn't have the most compelling villain either. But I do think you're right, if you have a good cast around it and they can still tell a relatively good story, you might we certainly might be in luck here. And so I'm excited to see everybody's dynamic translate onto the big screen for this film. So I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, I do got to say, though, in Birds of Prey, that scene where he basically was going to let the one girl go until he saw a snot bubble, that made me laugh.
Yeah. Ewan McGregor's Black Mask was pretty spot on. I will once says, I love a good B team, and these are the perfect characters to assemble, as one of the only missing members being Zemo to spice up the plot, to spice up the pot more. I mean, who knows? He's last time we saw him, he's on the raft right now. Whether he gets broken out, who knows? Maybe Zemo does have some place to play in here. I am also curious if Sharon Carter is in here in some way or another. The last time that we saw her was at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where she not only got a pardon, but she also was discovered to be the power broker and really the one pulling a lot of the strings behind things.
I somehow forgot about that whole side plot. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it felt like it was kind of a forced side plot a little bit, but I am curious if they even have plans for a Sharon Carter, and if she's maybe pulling some of the strings behind what's going on here as well. I really don't know, but I just think that there are a lot of really great moving pieces that I think they can really tackle for sure.
Definitely.
But guys, let us know your thoughts in regards to the upcoming Thunderbolts MCU movie, which again, I think is going to be the best MCU movie that we get this year in 2025. But we'll see. So with that out of the way, let's move on to our next topic. And we will stay in the world of the MCU, as a lot of us are certainly looking very much forward to the upcoming Daredevil Born Again series. I believe it drops sometime in March next year, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the release window for this as of right now. But we are getting a little bit further details in regards to this upcoming series, as one of the stars from Daredevil Born Again, and you can remember him from as Bullseye from the Netflix series Daredevil season 3. I believe he was at a recent convention and he gave us a little bit of a eye-opening situation that some of our characters might find themselves in, or at least the time period, I should say, that we're going to be revisiting these characters in. According to Wilson Bethel, he teases that Daredevil Born Again has a 5-year time jump from the original series. So we're not necessarily picking up exactly where we left off at with the previous series itself, but some time clearly has passed. He says, according to Wilson, the passage of time will easily fit through each familiar face when they reunite with Matt Murdock. So over the weekend, he says, according to Bethel, Born Again strongly reflects everything that happened to both the characters and the actors in the time since the Netflix original wrapped. There are a lot of untold stories from these 5 years in between that will inform how the characters are portrayed and require exploration when things start to unfold in March. Everyone will be starting in a different spot than where things ended in season 3. He says, yeah, I mean, Charlie sort of alluded to it, but I think one of the things that's interesting is, I mean, maybe it's different on a sitcom or something like that, but if you're on a show for over a period of time and the characters are aging together sort of in real time, and the show is well written and the writers are sort of responding to that reality transpiring, the wrinkles of their hair, etc., then in theory, the character is evolving in a way, whether or not the show was on air. So this kind of it's kind of fun, like this. It's kind of like this funny thing, stepping back after 5 years, where Born Again will pick up with that amount of time having transpired. The show doesn't pick up the day after we last saw it. It picks up 5 years later. So in theory, these are characters that have all lived 5 years of life and all the twists and turns that you take in that meantime. So whether or not those stories are necessarily on screen, there's just that little extra bit of life in there, which I think is, as an actor, it gives an opportunity to bring whatever your own journey has been in that time, and they get sort of a little longer in the tooth. So he is emphasizing the idea that not only has 5 years transpired for these characters, but clearly the actors themselves too. And how will they tap that 5 year sort of absence, if you will, back into their characters when they themselves as actors and their characters have been through significantly new things in their life during this time period. You know, Stuart, one of the things that really jumps out to me when Bethel talks about this, anytime somebody mentions like a 5 year jump or a 5 year gap, I do wonder about the blip. You
I
know,
was thinking that exact thing.
I
Um,
I am wondering, like, we know that Matt Murdock, I believe, survived the blip. Um, I believe we also know that Kingpin was blipped out of existence because when he comes back in Hawkeye, he's really trying to reestablish himself and control of the city. So those are the only two characters that I'm fully aware of in regards to their circumstances when it comes to the blip at the end of Endgame. And so it does make me wonder, did Foggy get blipped? You know, did Karen get blipped? What was that situation like for them? How did they juggle their business together? You know, I I am kind of curious as to how much has certainly taken place since the last time that we've kind of seen these characters. So there is an interest that I have in the sense that, look, we aren't necessarily just picking back up where season 3 left off. Like, yes, those seasons still have implications and moments in the show, but at the end of the day, there's about a 5 year gap that we haven't seen any of these characters, and a lot of stuff has certainly gone down during that time. Have their relationships got a little bit rocky? Is there resentments towards them because maybe one of their partners got blipped and now they weren't able to fully establish what they wanted for themselves in their lives because of the giant hiccup and everything that wind up happening? Like, I do wonder how these characters have certainly evolved over time, and the idea, I think, also too, the idea that these actors haven't really been around each other in 5 years too, I think adds an interesting dynamic to these characters now being thrusted back together after such a long period of time. So there is a part of me that wonders if the actor's absence has anything to do with the idea of like maybe one of them was blipped after 5 years, and so they have to come back as these characters, really digging into the idea like as an actor, yeah, we haven't really seen each other in 5 years, so like what is that certainly like for them now, having to kind of come back together. So I do wonder if that's a little bit of a clue that he's giving away, or if it's just from a technical writing standpoint as to how much these characters have evolved and what we'll see over time. But yeah, anytime anybody mentions a 5-year gap, Stuart, the blip is the first thing that comes to mind. But what did you take away from it?
No, the exact same thing. In fact, you know what, I kind of a prediction that popped in my head after hearing that is, we see how Daredevil season 3 ended on a pretty happy note for the most part. The only thing that gets like left unresolved is, of course, the bullseye thing. But what if after that moment with, Matt Murdock, Foggy, and Karen at the restaurant together, all having a good laugh, deciding to reopen the business and all that, that's when the blip happens, and then suddenly Foggy and Karen are suddenly turned to dust. If like they were to recontextualize that, it's like suddenly you take away that happy ending that they had from Daredevil season 3. And yeah, I can imagine 5 years later them coming back, things would be strange. They may see like a darker version of Matt Murdock, one who, kind of like Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, doesn't pull his punches, something like that. Yeah, I think that's actually, if that's the direction they're going in, that's brilliant. But if not, I'm still looking forward to seeing what direction it is that they go in. But yeah, it is also kind of funny because, the snap was something that happened, and it should have had, like, I even see Marcelino in the comments mentioning this. It was something that was like meant to be like, a major consequence within the Marvel universe, but and I like Spider-Man, don't get me wrong, but they did kind of treat it like a joke. Like everyone disappeared for 5 years, came back, and it's like, that's funny. And besides Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Doctor Strange, I can't think of too many Marvel movies where the blip like actually played a significant part in the movie itself, which is just so weird because this is, there should be theoretically a global struggle. I mean, when people disappear and then reappear, home should be missing. This is going to sound dark, but this is humanity we're talking about. And I'm just going to say it. There would be riots. There would be lots and lots of global riots all over the world, that kind of stuff. So I feel like we never got like the only time we almost got it was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We never got like a really good, like, grounded look at what something like that would have looked like. And I think that Daredevil may offer the perfect opportunity for that, if that's the direction they choose to go in. But yeah, that's assuming if that's what they meant by the 5-year time since they've seen each other.
Yeah, I would agree with you, especially when it comes to the blip. They really underutilized the concept of the blip in a lot of opportunities that they've had, and I would agree with you that besides the 2 or 3 here, I do think if anything, Falcon and the Winter Soldier certainly handled it the best in regards to the idea of like having to relocate a bunch of people that just pop back up after people have sort of claimed what's theirs, and then now that people are back, it's like, no, that's my home, like move out. Where am I supposed to go? Right. So I do think Falcon and Winter Soldier did a really good job at that, and if anything, I almost feel like that's a perfect layup for somebody like a show like Daredevil, especially with them being a law firm. I'm sure, people that have returned are probably trying to sue people that have moved, right? Like, I got to think that there's a fascinating dynamic with what the blip wind up doing. And who knows, maybe it wind up, maybe they're all stressed out because just the 2 of them can't handle all the work that's being flooded towards them. You know what I mean? So you're right. I do hope that if that's what Bethel is teasing in the sense of the 5 years, I do hope that there is some place in this series where they can really take the concept of the blip and make it a little bit more impactful, because I do think that is like a world-shattering event in the sense of like, yeah, it's going to be mayhem when these people return. So how did they handle all this stuff? And yeah, has Daredevil been able to handle all that on his own? So we'll see. We'll see if that's the direction that they go or not. But I am fascinated to see where these characters have certainly been up to. And it's what's crazy to me is that if I remember correctly, like Karen and Foggy weren't even going to be in this series when it
Yeah.
was initially put together. So it's like, one, Marvel, what were you thinking, guys? And then secondly, I just hope that they had enough time to really rewrite it and structure it to have a real meaningful impact and feel like the world of Daredevil that we wind up leaving. So we'll see if they can tackle it properly.
Definitely. Yeah, I gotta say though, I'm curious to see what that first episode looked like for their original script for Board Again, because if it's so bad that they had to scrap it and start completely from scratch with the show, there's a morbid curiosity for me with that. I need to see this. I need to see what was so bad about it.
There's a part of me that wonders if it picks up the vibes of She-Hulk a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more lighthearted, more law procedural type of stuff,
I could see that. Like if they wanted to keep Matt Murdock kind of in the same kind of way he was written in She-Hulk, like I think it worked great with that show. But I feel like if that's what we got in a Daredevil show, I don't think it would be as entertaining. I think that, Daredevil is more entertaining when it's like more of a darker tone and, not everything is happy. I know that makes me sound terrible. I like seeing Matt Murdock suffer.
Yeah, it works. It works for characters like him, for sure. Going back to our previous topic, I Will One says Sharon Carter will return. So he believes it's going to pop up.
Awesome.
Marcel says, I heard in the original draft, Matt wasn't going to put his suit on until episode 4. Blah.
Heard that too.
Blah. But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts on some of the brand new teases for Daredevil Born Again in the comment section box below. And with that out of the way, guys, we will get into our very last topic of the day before we get into live viewer questions. As the Lord of the Rings is back in the news, Stuart. We talked a little bit about this at the top, that we do have an upcoming Lord of the Rings movie, The War of the Rohirrim, an animated film that's set to go ahead and drop in theaters this upcoming Friday, December 13th. Tickets currently are on sale. They also did drop the first, also an extended 8-minute preview. This was like 8-minute week. I don't know what's going on, but it's like Kraven dropped their 8 minutes and War of the Rohirrim was like, hold my beer. I'm going to show you how it's done. And they dropped an 8-minute extended sneak peek also at their upcoming film. But that really led to sort of an avalanche of news for the Lord of the Rings franchise, as some of the executive producers and those working alongside Peter Jackson are certainly in the news, letting us know that there's a lot more Lord of the Rings certainly coming. One of the topics that was certainly talked about this week, though, Stuart, was the hunt for Gollum. And for those of you who don't know, the hunt for Gollum really is the story and the concept of that takes place during the Fellowship of the Ring. That's completely sort of taken out here, where I believe it's not only Gandalf, but it's also Aragorn trying to find where Gollum is before Sauron sort of gets his hands on him to learn who potentially might have the ring. It's an entire journey and a part of the appendices, if I'm not mistaken, that wind up sort of taking place in between Fellowship of the Ring that was not showcased to us on the big screen. And so because of the fact that it deals highly or heavily, I should say, with like Gandalf and Aragorn, the idea of a returning Viggo Mortensen has been thrown out there, believe it or not. Clearly, this man is certainly aged over time since the last time that we saw him. So how's this really going to work, though? This is from the playlist.net. It says, the hunt for Viggo, if this thing was chill out. Oh, my God. Like an epileptic seizure over here. Slow down, bro. What is happening? Playlist.net says, the hunt for Gollum. Philippa Boyens says the Lord of the Rings brain trust really wants Viggo Mortensen. They really want this man to certainly return. It says there's a lot of excitement surrounding the Lord of the Rings franchise. You've got the popularity of the Rings of Power Prime Video series, as well as the animated film that we just talked about. However, what might be the most exciting also is the upcoming live action film, The Hunt for Gollum. And according to one of the people responsible for that film, one of the fan favorite actors has already been asked to return. So they've reached out to this man. It says in an excerpt from the upcoming playlist interview with Lord of the Rings writer Philippa Boyens, and member of the Brain Trust alongside Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh. They're all kind of like creative consultants on the Lord of the Rings franchise for WB right now. Responsible for the future of the Rings franchise, talked about the forthcoming film. Specifically, she talked about how the feature film has a prominent role for Aragorn and that they hope that Viggo Mortensen returns. She also explained how the hunt for Gollum is set during the Fellowship of the Ring era, shortly before Frodo Baggin leaves the Shire for Rivendell. And it begins with Gandalf sending Aragorn on a quest to find Gollum, who the wizards fear have revealed information about the One Ring to Sauron. So Viggo Mortensen's appearance is crucial, but will he return? She says, where'd it go? It says, honestly, that's entirely going to be up to Viggo collaboratively, and we are at a very early stage. I've spoken to Viggo. Andy Serkis has spoken to him. Peter Jackson has spoken to him. We've all spoken to each other, and honestly, I can't imagine anyone else playing Aragorn, but it will be completely and entirely up to Viggo. I know Andy wants to work with him, but also we don't see this as like using AI technology. This is about digital makeup, and whether Viggo does it or will entirely depend on how good the script is. And he doesn't have a script yet. So to be fair to Viggo, let's see if we write a good enough role and that he can find enough in it to see that it's a performance he wants to take on. After that, it's between Viggo and Andy of how that is achieved. However, what happens if Mortensen doesn't want to or can't do the film? Well, Boyens and the Brain Trust would love it if he could still be involved in some way. I suspect if he decides he doesn't want to do it, we would still want him to be heavily involved. Like, how do we handle this character? How do we hand this character off? But literally, that decision is several months away. He's got to read the script first, and that's exactly what I'm going to be working on when I get out of this interview. The shape of it is interesting, as it's not quite a prequel and essentially runs parallel to the events of Fellowship of the Ring. Specifically, the film is set after Bilbo's 111th birthday and before the Mines of Moria. Boyens explained some of the film's intention and revealed a few details about it. She says, yes, it's deliberately the bridging film and the story we wanted to tell. It does center on Gollum / Smeagol, so it's a little bit of an origin story going on, but when you delve into it, as you do with anything Professor Tolkien wrote, you see the layers and layers of story that's underneath there and how interconnected they are. It's a tricky story because the fate of several characters we already know, but you kind of then have to use that to your advantage as a storyteller. So she actually gives a really juicy sort of amount of details when it comes to the hunt for Gollum. I'm actually got the opportunity to read that in full here. But Stuart, I will let you tackle this first. What are your thoughts on the idea of like where this story takes place? Her pointing out, hey, we already know the end result for a lot of these characters, and really the idea and her importance of trying to land Viggo for this role. What did you take away from this article?
It's funny. This article kind of addressed like all my concerns that I have for this movie of, us already knowing what the end game is for the story. And then also just like the overall like kind of concern of how do you make an entertaining story from such like a small thing from the, what are they called again? The appendices or something like that. But, I like that they're addressing it. And yeah, I do like, that they're trying to get Viggo Mortensen back. And one thing that's great about that is that they tried this before with The Hobbit. They really wanted him to come back as Aragorn in The Hobbit, and he refused to do it because, of course, he's not even in the Hobbit book. So he just said, like, it wouldn't make any sense. So he turned down the role because he didn't like the idea. So I do like the fact that here it's like based on whether or not he likes the script, and because he's turned down, money before, because it didn't make sense to him, it's good to know that if he is in this movie, he's not doing it for an easy paycheck. He's doing it because he actually does like really trust the script basically that they have going into it. So that's cool to know. But that all being said, until like I see a trailer to really get an idea of what this movie is going to be like, I still can't say I'm hyped for it. Unfortunately, it sounds like an interesting story, but just not one that's worthy of a full length feature. And again, I'm sure this movie will come out and prove me wrong, but as of now, I still have yet to see or hear anything that really kind of makes me go, okay, I see where they're going with this kind of story at the moment. Right now, I'm just kind of like, I can make for a cool short film, I guess. I still just don't see how it's going to work as a movie. But again, I'm so sure that I'll be proven wrong once the trailers come out.
Yeah, I think the fact that she mentions, like, when you read Tolkien's work, there's layers and layers to a story here. So there's a part of me that's like, okay, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, Stuart, in the sense of like just hearing it as a premise sounds interesting, but how do you make beginning, middle, and final act that's really riveting? Especially like she said, that's one of the challenges when you know the result of where this kind of leads to, where your stakes at, right? Like why is this story certainly worth telling? And I think that's probably what she's referring to, in the sense of like, yeah, we have to get to writing. Like, there's really not even a script at this point for him to kind of look at. And so I think that's really going to come down to it. But yeah, I would agree with you in the sense too. That's like this is Viggo Mortensen we're talking about here. Like, it's not like we see this man pop up in everything. Like, he is a guy that's very particular about what he attaches himself to and what he doesn't, what he decides to stay away from and what he actually decides to make. And so I think you got to come out with like an impeccable script in order for this man to be like, you know what? Yeah, I definitely want to jump on board this and be a part of this, certainly all over again. There is a part of me that I loved him so much as Aragorn. As of right now, I can't see anybody else doing this role, so I hope that he decides to tackle it. But I do know that there is probably somebody out there that can do this role. And I do want to live in that reality of not being somebody that's like, oh, if Vigo's not playing it, I don't want to watch it. Like, I do want to be open to that idea, but I can understand why they want Viggo to certainly come back and return, because of how pivotal Aragorn certainly is to this story. I am going to be interested too in the concept of digital makeup. I do hope that we have gotten to the point in technology where digital makeup almost looks flawless, to where we can't really tell the difference. Like, I think the Tarkin stuff is more CGI and I don't want to say AI, but more CGI related, because I don't think that they made his whole body CGI, or did they? I can't remember how they tackled Tarkin.
It like I know they said that
wasn't
they said they only did the face, but every time I watch Rogue One, his whole body
his whole
looks
body, right?
CG.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe they had an actor, but then they just put a CG filter all over the actor in order for the face to blend into the body more. But yeah, I do think that looking okay. There's actually a perfect example here. There was a Star Trek short film, and this was a fan project. This did not have a Hollywood budget at all, but they had William Shatner working with I forgot the actor's name, but the guy that voice acts Darth Maul in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. So basically, he did the body movement for Captain Kirk, but they basically used William Shatner's likeness with his permission, of course. This was actually a fan project where they had William Shatner working on it with them. So you had younger Kirk. You had like both a younger Kirk from the original series and then a younger Kirk from the early Star Trek movies together on screen. And it was just the you could kind of tell when you paused at certain moments that it was digital makeup, but I think they had just the perfect blend of digital and prosthetics. So it honestly just looked really, really good. Like, if you see it at first glance, you wouldn't know that there were digital effects on the face. You would actually think, oh, that's a young William Shatner.
Yeah, so we'll see how this looks. Marcelino did say they did Kurt Russell's face well in the flashbacks to Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
That's right.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I kind of felt it was a little CGI heavy. Like, I still felt like I can kind of tell from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but I'll have to go back and rewatch it myself. So I am a little look, as much as I want Vigo to certainly come back, I am a little skeptical that they can make it look good. Or if the choice is just to go with somebody else. Like I can hold my disbelief and believe that it's somebody else there also. But I can see why they want to come back. And clearly they're trying hard, Stuart. I mean, when you have Andy Serkis, yourself, and Peter Jackson trying to reach out to this man to convince him to take this particular role, I mean, you're really showing yourself there. And so they definitely want Vigo to certainly return. But like they said, it will come down to it. And if he's not there, I'm completely on board with him at least handing over the reins and being heavily involved. You know, whoever the new actor might be, having somebody like Vigo sort of teach him his mannerisms, you know, really help influence the performance and stuff a little bit, I think could really go a long way. But look, I am a Lord of the Rings fan. And while I personally don't know what the beginning, middle, and final act of this film is even going to be to warrant this film being made, Stuart, I'm not going to lie. You tell me live action Lord of the Rings film, I'm like, yes, please. I'll take anything because I just love Tolkien's world that much. And I do think that there are some really great avenues and side stories to really be told here. So we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. But they definitely are trying to get Vigo to certainly return for the hunt for Gollum.
Sam Whitworth, that was his name.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. And they also continue to talk with Philippa Boyens about the future of the franchise. And she says, let me go ahead and pull this up here because they do have plans on doing more content as well from what they have certainly just announced. It says, Boyens said that when one delves into anything Tolkien wrote, you see the layers and layers of the story that's underneath there and how interconnected they all are. So there are more interconnected stories to be told within Middle Earth. Boyens wasn't specific, but suggested that the unlimited options in terms of ideas include potentially more anime films. She says there's a lot of possibilities when you look at it. There's a lot of things in there, actually. One of the things War of the Rohirrim story has shown us is that a standalone story works really successfully within the world of Middle Earth. And I would genuinely I would genuinely, because I've fallen in love with that form, love to see more anime. But that depends on the audience out there, your audience, fans of not only the original trilogy, but that vast anime audience. I'm really interested to see what they think. She also said that the Lord of the Rings Brain Trust have a wealth of ideas to work on, many standalone films, potentially sequels to War of the Rohirrim, and another larger, more epic trilogy in the vein of the original Lord of the Rings films. So we're in the audience's hands. If there's an appetite for it, we've got more stories. There's a ton of stories left to be told and some really, really interesting ones. But my preference would be, after Hunt for Gollum, would be to take those to take a look at those standalone stories. And then if we get really ambitious, there are some epic particular stories that could translate into more traditional epic trilogy format. That was the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. Clearly ideas were swimming in her head. She says, no, I need to go take a nap. You've exhausted me. So I do love the idea. Look, I will say this, Stuart. After watching the 8-minute extended clip for the War of the Rohirrim, I really love the art style, man. The anime movement, colors, the action. I think I'm really excited to see this on the big screen, whether that be Dolby Cinema, IMAX screen, one of the best screens that I could possibly find. If War of the Rohirrim is successful and it looks as dynamic as it does to me on the small screen and then on the big screen, I really do hope that there's an audience, because that is exciting for me in the sense of standalone sort of animated films. And I think if they can do that, I do think they can continue to allow the Lord of the Rings franchise to certainly thrive and be one that people continue to come back for. Whether or not people have appetite for animated film-wise, that I don't know. But I do hope War of the Rohirrim is successful, because it looks like they have some really big plans, though, Stuart.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be seeing War of the Rohirrims in theaters because I love animation, and it's just been way too long since there's been an American produced 2D animated movie that was released in theaters. Like you get it specifically like with anime movies, like those still go to theaters all the times, but nothing like American produces has really gone to theaters. That's like, you know, your traditional 2D animation. So I'm excited to see this in theaters. And I really hope, like, not just with Lord of the Rings, but I hope it leads to just, you know, more 2D animated movies coming back. You know, it's not that I have anything against 3D animated movies. It's just that I kind of wish it didn't replace 2D animation. I wish they could have, you know, there could have been a place for both of them side by side rather than one over the other. So I am so hyped for this movie. I will definitely be watching it on the big screen. I haven't watched the 8-minute preview, and I don't want to because I kind of want to go in knowing as little about this movie as possible.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. Because I watched it, and it immediately gave me appreciation for one of the characters that are going to be in there. I was thinking to myself, like, damn, I need to see more of this guy in this movie. Like, I really hope that they highlight it. But it's got a bit of a narration to it, so it definitely just puts you in sort of the storytelling aspect of Tolkien. Like, you really are thrusted back into this world, and the way that they handle it is just in a great, fantastical sort of imagery in a beautiful way. And look, Hollywood tends to repeat a lot of what's successful.
Mhm.
And if War of the Rohirrim is successful, you might get your wish, Stuart. They might be like, you know what? More 2D animated films for big franchises coming your way soon. Like I could literally see that becoming a thing.
Mhm. Oh my
So
gosh, you know who it might influence actually is James Gunn with the DC universe going forward. Like, because he did say he wanted to do animated movies, so it's like if this movie does well, we could see more like DC movies, but in this kind of an art style.
I mean, look, I would also say Lucasfilm. Pay attention here. You know, I know we had a Star Wars animated movie come to the big screen that was a disaster. But I would also say you got something great in the form of Star Wars Visions that I think is really highlighting what Star Wars can be in the 2D animated form. And if you can find yourself a really great studio that did something like Star Wars Visions, but bring like a canonical Star Wars movie to the big screen in 2D animation, man, I think people would eat that up for sure in regards to what you can do from a visual standpoint and animated standpoint. So we'll see, man. Go see War of the Rohirrim, guys, if you want to see more 2D American made, especially animated films. So let us know your thoughts. But yeah, a lot of coming out, man, from Lord of the Rings. I remember when David Zaslav took over, and they said we really want to tap into some of our popular IPs like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, and we're like, bro, we've gotten movies of these already. Like, what are you gonna do? You know, I can see why they would want to tap back into them for sure. I think there's a lot of potential here.
Mm.
But yeah, guys, let us know your thoughts. But with that out of the way, that will wrap up all of our main topics for the day, Stuart. And if anything, I think you know what time it is.
I do indeed. And now, everybody, it is time for live viewer questions.
And we are running a little bit behind on live viewer questions here, so I certainly do apologize, guys. But we'll try and get through as many of these as we possibly can. Let me go ahead and pull this up here. If you want to go ahead and submit a live viewer question over every Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, we will go ahead and go over to our main YouTube page, as you see here. Click on that community tab, and we will always have a live viewer question post for you guys. So always feel free to submit your questions down below, and we'll definitely get to them at the end of every show. Marcelino asked this before, but Adam couldn't answer. What are your thoughts on HBO Max's miniseries Santa? Did you think it was underrated gem, or is it bad as people say it is? I still haven't checked it out though. But it is holiday season, so maybe I'll check it out now. Have you seen it, Stuart?
I have not.
I am not. I'm gonna put that on my list right now, Marcelino. Santa, what's it called? Santa Inc. HBO Max's miniseries. Did you think it was an underrated gem or is bad? I'll try and get back to you. If not next week, then maybe the week before. But please remind me, Marcelino. But I will put that on my list. I have seen a lot of Super Sentai teams, and I can confidently say that nearly all of them are so badly written. I'm not expecting the greatest writing ever when watching these, but I can tell the writers do not care for the team ups and only do it out of obligation. And for some reason, when it comes to Sentai seasons of on their own, that's when they put their best writing forward. But the team ups don't have the same passion. I probably would agree with you. I do think I feel like the individual story arcs for the Super Sentai teams can be really well written. I'm a big fan of the Go Busters season specifically in regards to it. There's just something really impactful for me about that story. You know, a kid that loses his family, having to be raised by his sister, you know, being thrust into a situation of being trained then for opportunity to eventually maybe try and find his family. I don't know. There is something really a great emotional arc to something like a Go Busters and even a little bit of like Tokuger too. I think some of those have probably been like my two favorite written Super Sentai series. So I don't necessarily know if I would say all of them are so badly written. As I do think some of them do have really good, strong writing, but I would agree with you. Maybe not necessarily the greatest written stuff when it comes to the crossover events sometimes. But I like even one of the crossover events, at least that always stood out to me that I was a big fan of was Super Sentai Strongest Battle. I thought that was actually pretty fun. But yeah, maybe they slack a little bit when it comes to the crossover events. But individual arcs, I do think that they have some pretty good writing in it. I mean, it's better than Power Rangers to me, that's for sure. But what about you, Stuart? How do you feel?
Yeah, I think that well, much like Power Rangers, the team ups are very mixed. Sometimes they're great, sometimes you can just tell they're only there because of either obligation or marketing, you know, that kind of a thing. But the ones that I've seen, I think like a lot of them are fine. They just really take a long time for the actual crossover part of the team up to happen, because they often especially with the Common Rider Super Sentai team ups, they often have like the characters from the Common Rider side doing their own thing and then Super Sentai doing their own thing, and it's almost completely unrelated right up until like kind of the actual fight at the end. So you don't really get as much like of the fun character chemistry that you kind of look for in crossovers, and I think that's one thing that they lack the most of. I think it's like they kind of are their priority is having them fight together rather than having them actually like interact together. Oh, you're muted.
Marceline says, just so we're clear, I'm talking about the team ups, aka the crossovers, not the individual seasons themselves. It sounds like you misunderstood my question again. No, I didn't misunderstand. Your first question, your first sentence is literally, I have seen a lot of Super Sentai team ups, and I can confidently say that nearly all of them are badly written. Yeah, I mean the team ups are bad. I mean, I personally think the team ups are certainly badly written. But from a season standpoint, I certainly do like them. But yeah, from a team ups perspective, yeah, I do think that some of them are badly written. I would also agree with you though. He says I argue that Power Ranger team ups are better than Super Sentai. I think so. I don't know what it is about them, but I personally think that the team ups for Power Rangers are better written than Super Sentai. But I do think Super Sentai does get a little bit lazy in that regards when it comes to their team ups. Many people have criticized Carly. Hey, did you just write this? Did you write this? How did you know I just literally finished Falcon and the Winter Soldier, man? He says many people have criticized Carly Morgenthau as the worst MCU villain ever written. The main reason is because she's a hypocrite. She talks about wanting to liberate people, but then does violent acts of defenseless civilians and calls it justice. it was at its worst when she killed John Walker's friend Lamar and showed no remorse. She also doesn't have much of a personality and comes across as a whiny brat or either stale and stiff. But the worst part of Carly was her relationship. Sam constantly defended her actions and called out anybody who called her a terrorist, even when she threatened his own sister and nephews. This made Sam come across as either an idiot or an asshole who doesn't care about his family. There were a lot of people who were eager to see Sam become the next Captain America, but because of Carly, these same people went from excited to having mixed feelings. Many people have said John Walker or Zemo would have been a better choice for villains. What are your thoughts? Do you want to take that one first, Stuart?
Well, first of all, I do want to say that him trying to say, like, let's not call him terrorists. It wasn't him trying to, like, fully defend her actions. He understood her actions. He didn't defend it. His direct line is, I get what you're fighting for, but I can't get behind how you're fighting for it. Like, literally direct quote from him. As for her being a hypocrite and not one of the best villains, fine. She's not one of the best villains. Hypocrite, dude. 99% of all villains are hypocrites in one way, shape, or form. Hypocrisy is one of the main things that makes you a villain, to my opinion. Like, that's one of the leading things that is like that's like a leading trait in a lot of supervillains in some way, shape, or form. If you think about their overall goals and ambitions too hard, you will find hypocrisy. It's somewhere in there. So I didn't mind her being a hypocrite. I thought it actually, worked for her character. And that's one of the things that I think makes a villain, not necessarily a good villain, but a villain in general. But yeah, like my overall thoughts, I didn't think she was a great villain, but I didn't mind. I didn't think it was bad the way Captain America told them to not just like call them terrorists. And it wasn't even the fact that he didn't think they were terrorists. It was more just, it's just when you say the word terrorist, it's easy to just brush off their motivations and then just say, oh, we can't. Everyone loves to use the phrase, we can't give into terrorist demands, even if what they're demanding is something very, very reasonable or something important, and I think that's what, Sam was trying to get across. We can't just ignore what they were fighting for, regardless on how they went about it.
Yeah, he even says a line in the finale when they said, well, she was a terrorist. And he says, there you go again. It's just a label that you're putting on these people, right? Like you label things that you don't understand. And he compares it to like the word thug and another word that he winds up using. But in regards to terrorists, yeah, he definitely did emphasize the idea that it's kind of like just a label that we tend to put on things we don't understand. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I agree with you. Marcelino, in regards, I do think she's one of the worst MCU villains ever written. Honestly, especially after rewatching it. Look, for me, I can see why. I think for me, it really comes down to execution, because there is a part of the series where I can see 100% why Sam has the mindset towards her in regards to really trying, like, look, let me just talk to her. Let me just try and really get to her, and whatever the case may be. But I do think that the execution of her character in here was really poor, because there is a portion of that season where she's very much sort of like trying to help the people. I think she has really good intentions, maybe going around about it the wrong way, but she has good intentions for what she's trying to do in regards to liberating people. But then there is another half of this where she does wind up taking it to the point of violence, and then she does very much become a hypocrite. But I think what's missing from this also is that, and it's the same thing that affected John Walker. He took the super soldier serum. Right? The super soldier serum is what really emphasizes your personality in a good way or a bad way, while also giving you super strength. It's really what made John Walker sort of have this psychological break that he does. And I think the same thing happens to Carly in here. The idea, and it's something that Zemo even references, right? Like eventually they will become the thing that they sort of hate the most. They will become sort of the fascist or the authoritarian, because they have sort of this power and this kind of really go to their head, if you will. And so I think that's exactly what happens to Carly. So from a story point, it works, but the execution of that, and showcasing that in a much better way, I think was really poorly done. And so when you watch the show, it does come across as like one episode, she wants to liberate people, and the next she's like, I don't care, I'm gonna kill, she's down to killing people. Like, what the, like, the change up in character is so crazy to me. I think that they handled it so much better with somebody like a John Walker than what they did with Carly. And for me, because of that, the way that they handled it, it can come across as either stale and stiff and her being a whiny brat at times. So for me, I totally agree with you. I do think that she was one of the worst MCU villains ever ever written, and I don't think that they did her any justice whatsoever, unfortunately. But as far as how Sam handles it, I have no problem with how Sam handles it. Like, that's Sam Wilson. He is a guy that's going to use his voice first, give people opportunities first, and try and sort of talk them off the ledge. And I think that's what certainly separates him. If people feel some type of way about Sam because of that, then, I think that's unfortunate. But I do think, if anything, that to me, that builds him up to, one, not only handling things differently than how Steve Rogers would, but I think showcases how Sam Wilson would handle the situation significantly better than majority of people in today's society. And I think that's, again, why we need somebody like a Sam Wilson as a Captain America for the 21st century. So I would agree with you on one aspect, but the idea of it, how he handled it, making him looking weak, no, I don't think that makes him weak at all. I think, if anything, that makes him a lot stronger minded than a lot of people these days, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Last week I asked if there were any memes you were getting tired of and seeing and wished would end, but I know the kind of memes but I know what kind of memes you're tired of seeing. Last week you posted something on your Facebook page and it related to the Ray movie, and there was a meme when somebody posted of an image of a dog shitting with a label of Disney Star Wars right next to it. It was a guy opening his mouth wide to eat the dog shit with the labeled Star Wars. Yeah, I think that type of meme you're tired of seeing are the toxic kind that put other people down. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan. It was on the Facebook page though. It's like calling us Disney shills, and I will just eat anything that Disney gives us. Yeah, sad. But yeah, I would agree with you there, Marcelino. JDF, a Power Rangers legend. We all know that Jason David Frank as Tommy is the GOAT, or the face of the Power Ranger franchise. Since his debut in MMPR Season 1, Green with Evil Saga, he has become the most popular character in the entire Power Ranger franchise. Since then, he's had 5 different Ranger forms since being the original Green, White, first Turbo Red Ranger, and then returned later as years in Black Ranger as a mentor. We even got an incredible episode, Fighting Spirit, where we saw Tommy in a coma fighting his previous forms. Him fighting his past Ranger forms showed how strong of a person Tommy was in his legacy. Him not finding himself as the Red Turbo Ranger showed that he had permanently passed on the powers to TJ as a true owner of those powers. He really came a long way. Not only was Dino Thunder the peak of his character, he has returned 2 more times since Forever Red in Super Mega Force and Dimensions in Danger 25th anniversary in Super Ninja Steel. Tommy having his own Master Morpher and being able to access 4 of his old Ranger powers showed that Tommy never stopped fighting as a Ranger. While the Morpher itself was never explained on the show, fans can come up with their own theories, like perhaps Billy helped create it just for an occasion. While many fans felt like Tommy was becoming overrated, in actuality, he really only returned twice after Forever Red. His return in Dimensions in Danger was sadly JDF's final on-screen appearance as Tommy before his sudden passing. Tommy did appear in the 30th anniversary Netflix special Once and Always in his Green Ranger suit. While JDF is no longer with us, his character of Tommy lives on in the franchise, both in live action and comic books. And I will say this too. With his last return being in Dimensions in Danger, his final on-screen appearance, I think that's as fitting as you can get. And I say that because he literally got the opportunity to go through all his transformations and have an incredible showcase of his fighting ability and style. So yeah, I think it's sad to see him go, but I think that's probably as fitting of a final appearance as he could have. But yeah, rest in peace, JDF. We are so sorely missed, bro.
Yeah, I got to see him in all of his different Ranger outfits, and it was on the 25th anniversary of the show. I think that was kind of a perfect like final hurrah for Jason as a character. And yeah, definitely rest in peace, JDF.
Let's see here. Doomsday. Besides Barry Allen, who was your favorite character in CW's The Flash?
Ooh, that's a good question. Hmm. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say, specifically from season 1, the Reverse Flash. I loved him as a villain. He was perfect, and especially Tom Cavanaugh's performance, amazing.
Yeah, Tom Cavanaugh's performance as Reverse Flash, and then Cisco. Cisco for me was always my favorite.
Oh yeah, Cisco right underneath him.
Do you think Toei will ever end up running out of ideas for new Super Sentai seasons eventually? Honestly, no. I mean, I think when the series ends, I don't think it'll be from lack of ideas.
I think if they do ever run out of ideas, they'll just, simply hire new writers to come up with new ideas. Yeah. So long as it makes money, they're going to keep trying to keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you feel that more Power Ranger seasons are leaving Netflix at the end of the year? All the seasons except for Mighty Morphin and Cosmic Fury are being evicted. Yeah, it could be a licensing deal. Maybe they're tired of paying Hasbro for them. Maybe their contract with Hasbro is kind of coming up soon. So maybe that's why they're certainly leaving. Maybe they're probably not making as much money as residuals as they were before, and so maybe that's why they're leaving also. If anything, I would expect them to be on the YouTube channel, but I guess let's just say it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me.
Same, but I have been seeing them pop up on Tubi now, and in fact, I think someone in the comments actually mentioned that already. So
Yeah,
it's not gone. I'm sure they'll pop up on other streaming platforms as well.
My friends call me Joseph. Are Lex Luthor and Clark Kent childhood friends? In some DC original comic book continuities, Lex Luthor and Clark were friends who grew up together in Smallville before Luthor formed his rivalry with Superman. The closest we got was their series from Smallville. To that end, one has to wonder if the same kind of dynamic will be featured in the new DCU film for 2025 Superman. I'm not under the impression that the original continuity for them, I don't believe that they were friends, but I do like the concept of them being friends, or at least it really worked for me when I saw it in Smallville. But I haven't really read too many comic books where they were. I know that they exist, but I haven't really picked up too many of those. But originally, I don't believe that they were.
There were Super Bowl like when Clark Kent was, I want to say, in high school. I think he knew Lex Luthor because I think in the Superboy comic book, his origin and Superboy being the Clark Kent Superboy, when he was before he was Superman. I believe his origin of how he lost his hair came from a Superboy comic book. But I could be wrong. It's one of those things where I never read those comic books, but I hear, other comic book YouTubers talking about it. So I think that's how it went down, is that it was in a Superboy comic book. An experiment got wrong, caused Lex his hair, and he blamed Superman for it.
Yeah, it says Marcio says in OG comics in the 50s or 60s where Superboy and Lex were friends until Superboy made him bald. So there you go.
That's my motivation for wanting to kill Superman. He made me bald.
Would you like to see that dynamic in the movie?
Not really. I don't know. Even though I love Smallville and everything, I kind of prefer when they only just meet each other in Metropolis. I kind of prefer that dynamic personally.
I gotcha. Yeah. Would you like Jessica Friedman? Would you like to have seen Tyler Superman meet some of other Superman like Tom or Dean Cain? And what would you like to see next season for My Adventures of Superman? So Tyler technically has met Tom Welling. Not in the Superman form, but he did meet Tom Welling in the crossover event. I think it was super brief though, like super brief. I think they showed up to his farm because this clip is actually up on our TikTok page, which has like the clip itself has like 114,000 views right now. But it's I think it's one of the Crisis on Infinite Earths episodes where it's Lois, Clark, and Iris show up to Smallville's farm, and Tom Welling's Superman is he's chopping wood with both hands, and Clark says, I can do that with one hand, like questioning like what's going on here. But then they're quickly like taken away, sort of thing, thanks to um John Cryer's Lex Luthor showing up. But so they did meet briefly, very briefly. But it would have been cool to see I mean, Dean Cain in the Superman costume now, though? Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, I don't see that happening anytime. But
what would you like to see for next season in My Adventures of Superman?
Oh, for next season, that's a good question. For one, I really want to see Lex Luthor become more fully established as a character, because we kind of saw him starting to turn into the Lex that we know and love from the comic books, so now I want to see him kind of fully developed. I definitely look forward to seeing more Kara and Superman working together, seeing her adapting to life on Earth because she's not as used to it as Superman is, and yeah, I hope for some really good villains and comic book dynamics.
The most talented man in the world has been a topic for a while now when it comes to Miles Morales eventually being brought to the MCU. I think we still need to wait until the right time to introduce the live action Miles Morales, perhaps once Tom Holland's tenure as Peter Parker is over, unless we introduce Miles with Peter as his mentor. While some people are burnt out of the multiverse films, maybe we can introduce Miles with Peter as a solo film by exploring his origin story, though not as an actual origin story, if that makes sense. Would it be okay if we took a page from Spider-Man Homecoming, like Tom Holland's Peter Parker was fully introduced with Tony Stark as his mentor without actually making the film feel like a typical origin story? Obviously, we had Peter pop up in Captain America Civil War before we had Homecoming. So yeah, when it comes to Miles Morales in particular, we need a way for Miles to be introduced in the MCU without feeling like, oh, we've seen this before. Agree or disagree? How can Miles be brought into MCU without feeling like a generic superhero film? This could even apply to the fact that we already have the animated Spider-Verse animated feature film that made the character and its story very cool and unique. I mean, my intention was always to have Beyond the Spider-Verse introduce him into the real world. I feel like with how long it's taken for them to develop Beyond the Spider-Verse, I feel like just timing of that might be what's slowing it down. Like, I do wonder if they had intentions of bringing Miles in for something like Secret Wars. I don't know if that's necessarily off the table or not. But how would you do that based off of where Miles Morales' story left him off at in Across the Spider-Verse? I don't know. Because I always expected him to pop up in the real world come Beyond the Spider-Verse. But yeah, I mean, look, it's getting to the point now where, like, I don't even know what Spider-Man 4 is supposed to be. They've teased at the idea of it being a multiverse story. So, okay, if it's a multiverse story, is Spider-Man 5 going to be another multiverse story of Miles Morales somehow coming into that world? Like, I really don't know how you execute it. Look, at this point, I'm just thinking to myself, as much as I think people want to see Miles Morales in the MCU, I know some people are probably going to hate me for saying this, Stuart, but I think he should just stick in the Sony Spider-Man universe.
I don't know. I think there's a reality where we get an MCU Miles Morales, but we still get to see the Spider-Verse movies continue, and we still get to see that version of Miles Morales in live action as well, especially because of the way they've been kind of like hinting at it a little bit, specifically with the fact that we had a cameo from starts with the P. He was the villain in the first
Prowler.
Prowler, yeah, we had a cameo from Prowler played by Donald Glover from Spider-Man No Way Home. So you had your MCU tie in there, and then also not to mention the fact that we get the villain crossing over into the Venom universe, and then we also get like a live action look at both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, like when they're looking at the many deaths of Uncle Ben. So I think there's a reality where you can have both, but we'll have to wait and see if that ends up happening. But I know that Kevin Feige himself has said that he wants Miles to come to the MCU. So I guess, honestly, I think it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, we'll see how they execute it for sure. Blossom, hey, remember I mentioned that Toei should make villains modeled after Mr. Burns and Smithers? You think they should add a bit of Smithers' crush on Mr. Burns? By the way, I liked your idea about making the Hounds foot soldiers.
Yes. I think that's a brilliant idea too. I mean, otherwise, how else do you get a character like Smithers to work with Uncle Burns unless like there's like an underlying thing there, you know what I mean? Oh, are you muted?
Let's see here. We got one last question. It's not up on the live viewer chat, but Ram Jam did bring his question into I'll read it fully on Facebook because Facebook it shows the whole thing. What are your thoughts on Netflix removing additional? Okay, so we already tackled that. So I watched a new YouTube video of Austin St. John's and Walter Jones on YouTube channel Fan Word, where they talked in full detail about why they left the show, and they brought up that they were offered contracts for 3 movies. They also mentioned that the initial movie which shot was under 20,000. 20 million, I would assume, maybe. And then the additional movie would have been bumped up to maybe 6. He says 6,000. Maybe he meant 6 million, which begs the question of what the second and third movie could have looked like if Austin, Toy, and Walter stayed on the show. So about why they left the show, and they brought up that they were offered contracts for 3 movies. Interesting.
I do wonder why they didn't just continue that franchise back in the 90s, because the first movie was a really big success. So it is kind of surprising that they didn't just end up continuing like that with its own trilogy and its own, because the movie's already like in a separate universe from the TV show. So I'm kind of surprised they didn't just like continue that franchise separately from the show and then just basically have 2 branching, like kind of like what they do with Star Trek, how you have like kind of the movie universe and the television universe. I'm surprised they didn't do that with the Power Rangers franchise, but instead they tried to tie it in with the next Turbo movie.
Yeah, I just don't know if they were that creatively smart, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Would a Ninja Turtles and Transformers crossover make a good live action movie or anime TV series? I would probably say TV series personally. I think Transformers is going to be a little bit busy with G.I. Joe right now, but I don't know. I think G.I. Joe and Transformers is a better crossover for the live action compared to Ninja Turtles and Transformers. What do you think, though?
I would definitely agree. I think that Ninja Turtles and Transformers would definitely work a lot better in like animation, whether it's a movie or a series.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think that will do it for all of our live viewer questions, guys. So thank you so much for everybody that participated here this week for sure. And I didn't even put any music on this time around, man.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even notice.
I completely forgot all about the music. It's all good. But yeah, that will do it for us here, guys. I believe Stuart and I are going to be recording a video sometime tomorrow after I get home. We're going to be we did a top 5 last year of our top 5 most anticipated films for 2024. We're going to be ranking those films from best to worst that we wind up seeing to wrap that up. And then I think maybe in a week or two, we're probably going to be doing a top 5 films for 2025 that we're looking forward to. So stay tuned for that. Also going to be dropping my Creature Commandos review for you guys, episodes 1 and 2. If not tomorrow, then expect that on Tuesday. So certainly look forward to that before episode 3 winds up dropping. We got Skeleton Crew episode 3 this week. Also, Stuart, are you going to be in town on Wednesday to help us out?
I definitely will.
So he's going to be joining myself and Will. I believe Crystal's coming back this week, or maybe that's the following week. I can't quite remember yet, but we will be having a Skeleton Crew episode 3 review for you guys also. And then any other cool things that wind up dropping throughout the week that we feel worthy of talking about. But that will do it for us here. Stuart, if people want to find you on social media, where can they find you?
You guys can find me at TurboStew01 over on Instagram and on Letterboxd, and maybe BlueSky in the future. We'll see.
If you want to follow us on BlueSky, we're definitely there at heroreport.bsky.social. We're also on TikTok at Hero Report. And then as you can see everywhere down below on social media, pretty much everywhere else at A+ Opinions. Very active, especially on our Facebook page. That's where we drop all of our news throughout the week, along with trailers, posters, news, behind the scenes featurettes and stuff to keep you posted throughout the week. And then we take our topics from there to talk about them here with you guys every Sunday. And our Facebook page continues to grow, man. We're about to crack 2,900 followers here, hopefully within the next week or so. I'm hoping at this pace, maybe we can get to 3K by the end of the year. So our Facebook page is truly growing, guys. So definitely follow us over there. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel on YouTube, what are you guys waiting for, man? Hit that subscribe button along with that bell notification. So when we drop brand new videos, you will certainly be notified. But that will do it for us here, guys. We'll certainly see you guys next weekend. And until then, do us a big favor as always. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.